Hello, my beautiful blossoms, blooms, and buds. Hang on, gotta. There we go. Anyway, let's restart. Hello, my beautiful blossoms, blooms, and buds. I'm Rosebud Reads, and this is my book garden. You have. I was about to say you have entered Thousand Autumns Book 5, Part 2. And I am excited about it because things are getting interesting. They're definitely heating up, I can tell you that. Logistics. I am not sponsored. I do not own anything except the physical copy over there and my time, and sometimes not even that. This is an 18 plus stream. I will censor it where I can. I will mention triggers where they occur, but we are talking about adult themes, be that as they may. So be aware. Am I forgetting anything? Oh, this is a chill stream, which means that I will be chatting with the chat. I will be chatting with my. You're the one who got the. Yep, you got the How to Survive as a Villain. You're gonna have to tell me how that is, because it looks really good. I think there was the different version that was trying to be published, but it just kept getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. Hello, Annika. How you doing tonight? So yeah, definitely tell me how it is once you read it. Ooh, really good so far. It was exciting. I actually managed to finish Silent Reading, and it was really good. Oh, that's the manhwa? I'm going to have to keep a lookout for Life as a Villain. Oh, no. Fighting with printer. Yes, I've got my pit pack here. And I've also got a heating pad. But I have already been told that we are working from home tomorrow because around me it will be negative 40-degree winds and I think negative 11 actual temperature. So suffice to say, we're not going to work tomorrow. Yeah. I've got my... Yeah. It's going to be cold. It's negative 12. Oh. Yep, that's going to be tomorrow. Yeah. I was smart this time and actually ended up going and getting gas because as I was on my way to get gas, I was down to one bar and I was like, yeah. Haven't been warm since Tuesday, right? So now I have one less concern, that being my car not starting on Monday when I get to go back to work. But yeah, I'm really excited to kind of have a little bit more of a free day tomorrow. So much so that I got some of my weekend, you could say, chores. Yep, that's exactly why I stopped for gas. It's a full tank now. So I'll be able to go to work on Monday. Yay! But your cold is the 50s. That is balmy. That is maybe fall weather. Go for it. Ask away. I love weird things. Go for it. Yeah, we do. T-shirt or light windbreaker weather. But yeah. everybody with the cold weather, make sure you're staying safe and warm. Because at temperatures like this, it can get dangerous very quickly. Oh, don't buy anything. Economic blackout, and it'd be nice to have support. Absolutely. I already stocked up on mozzarella sticks and pot stickers, so I'm pretty solid up. But yeah, I will happily do so. Yeah. I think I'll probably play a bit on Where Winds Meet. My sister has been, I think I already mentioned this, my sister has been playing as well. I got her into it, and she's much higher level than me already. So I need to catch up a little because I know she'll want to play. Yeah. Indian dumplings, yum. Yeah. I think I'm actually going to make my ramen broth, the homemade, again tomorrow because I was looking in the freezer to get some ice. And I saw that I still have some frozen lotus left, and the soup was really good. It turned out really thick. So I'm thinking I might make some homemade ramen tomorrow, which will be nice. I got the time. Won't have all of the stuff because I wasn't planning, but always have enough veggies. Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun and it's relaxing in a very cool way. It reminds me a lot of the same kind of the chill vibe of the first Legend of Zelda with the open world thing where like you can do the main quest, but you can also do like go find 500 acorns sort of thing. Samosas. That sounds fun. Yeah. Kind of like trying to explain the difference between lumpias and egg rolls. Or even, or so, all that. Both delicious. Oh, vertigo? Or, would the dizzy be epilepsy or is that just seizures? I'm not sure. But I know I also had a friend who had vertigo, so she could maybe play 30 minutes to an hour of video games, but after that, it was like she would get super nauseous. Yeah, yeah. Samosas are delicious. Momos, I don't know if I've had. Are they like bao? For some reason, my brain is bringing up kind of closer to bao. Yeah. Maybe I have had them. I might have. I've actually had the chance to travel to China. Unfortunately, before I got into all this stuff, so I didn't know about all the cool things that you could do in China. And so I am regretting now. It was through a thing in college. I actually got to play with the orchestral grand orchestra thing and mixed band in like 4 or 5 different cities in China. And I wish I had known more about the culture. And just, I feel like I would have gotten a little bit more out of it, but I got to like climb the Great Wall of China. I made it to the top of at least a portion. And it took like 3 hours. It's a lot of stairs. I don't know how far I'd get now with my current fitness level. But it's so cool. We actually went to a market and it was there's definitely culture shock where you don't things you wouldn't even think about. And one of the things was the sheer amount of people that exist in one space in China. Like I live close to Chicago, and like I thought that was a lot of people, and I had no idea. I have no idea how there are not more accidents on the road, because their traffic is insane. Yeah. The night market worked out well. I actually tried scorpion on a skewer because my friend bought it kind of like, whoa, let's try it, and it tasted like burnt chicken. Of course it did. Everything tastes like chicken, but that was my adventurous eat of my China trip. But I wish I had known more about the whole 7-Eleven thing, and I would have been a lot more adventurous, but I stuck a lot to like milk buns and that. But I also like our food choices were also in like groups. So like there was one time where people were like, let's do McDonald's. But there was some where literally we got to go to a bartering market, and I found my brother only asked me for one thing, and that was like an old sage stick, walking stick. And I actually managed to find one in a night market and bartered for it. Cost me $75, and I probably got cheated out of it, and it was probably, they probably got a decent enough deal, but that was the last of the money I had, and I was very proud of it, and it broke my suitcase bringing it back. I'll show it next time. It's pretty cool. It's got clouds all over it, but yeah, it was a amazing experience. It was like 12 days in China, and then like a day on an airplane there and a day on an airplane back. But it was very cool, and I'm so glad I had that experience. We also got to go see the Emperor's tea fields and have a tea service, which was super cool. We got to have a lot of different foods. The yogurt there is so good. I'm not big into yogurt, but I would eat or like drink the yogurt there every day. This year's royal albatross chick hatched and was returned to its father. They have a special thing with milk because a lot of Asian people are actually lactose intolerant. In some form, but they also like had some different like advertising with milk. So like, but that's also like the thing with soy. There's a lot of soy milk. And one of those things. No, but it was so cool because a lot of the places we stayed, it was like continental breakfast where it's just there. So like it was good. I could definitely eat a lot more of those foods just for breakfast because I'm not a super sweet person for breakfast. So it was a great trip. My friend unfortunately got pretty sick, so I stayed with them for a good part of it. My band director wasn't super happy that we ended up missing one of the concerts because they were really sick, and I was like, I don't feel comfortable leaving them. Oh, definitely. I could see people definitely using goat's milk or mare's milk. Soy milk's definitely a big thing. But I don't know. Yeah, got a fun medal for climbing. I bought a medal at the top of the Great Wall, so that was one of my other souvenirs. We actually got to go see the Terracotta Warriors, which was one of the absolute highlights, and I brought back a small one. I think it's the Soldier. for my dad, who's a big history buff. And they actually make it in the same way that the terracotta warriors were made, just on smaller scale. But you can actually buy a life-size terracotta warrior. And like there was actually a dude that was doing just that while we were there. But on the day that we went, it was absolutely like monsoon downpouring, and it was so cool because it was like a whole other world outside. And then you had just all the terracotta warriors there. It felt like another world. It was so cool. It was quite an experience, and I'm really glad it kind of happened that way. Like I know some of the people I was with were like grumbling about the weather, but it was like it made it even more special. So it was amazing. If I remember next week, I'll bring down the terracotta warrior and show you, because it's so cool. No, history's pretty cool. It doesn't have to be dry or just fact after fact. History is so full of stories that it is amazing. It's thrilling. It's wonderful. Well, not wonderful necessarily, but it's fascinating. That's a better word for it. So there's a lot of parts of history that are not so wonderful, but are still important. Anyway, switching gears. Speaking of books that we have gotten, after I finished Silent Reading, which was very, very good, I'm not as much a modern Danmei person, but I really enjoyed the mystery of it. It had me going for a good part of it. And you may not guess who the main leads are for a bit. I actually thought it was two different people. I think I guessed who it is because there's the two illustrations in the back, which gave it away a little bit. But I wasn't 100% sure. So, I'm going to write that down, Truffle, because I might look that up. Joseon Kings. Yeah, royalty can get pretty wild. No, I really enjoyed it, and I could definitely see myself buying the second book and reading it. The series I started now is actually the Joyful Reunion one. So I did end up ordering book 3, which came out recently. So this one's summary is: the truth's laid bare. After a narrow escape from the assassin Helan Ji, Duan Ling and Duan Wudu race back to Tong Pass to carry out their mission. Eliminate the treacherous General Bian Ling Bai and take control of a fortress on behalf of Southern Chen's imperial court. Yet their task takes a perilous turn when enemy forces outside the pass, sensing weakness, seize the chance to launch an all-out attack. Duan Ling must use all his wits and everything he learned from his father to hold Tong Pass against the foreign invaders until help arrives. At the same time, the closer Duan Ling grows to Wu Du, the harder he finds it to keep his true identity as the crown prince a secret. Duan Ling doesn't want to lie anymore, but revealing too much now might not only jeopardize their mission, but drag them both into terrible danger. I guess that was a little bit of a spoiler, which I apologize for. Oops. My bad. And then this one I'm really excited about, partially because of the other Twin Jades, but this just came out. It's Twin Jades of Jiang Dong. Same author, ironically enough. A promise made among cities aflame, turmoil rocks the Han Dynasty. After a peasant rebellion tears Xiao Yu's family apart, fate reunites the distraught young man with his childhood friend, Shun Si, heir to a powerful commander. in Sun Shi's unshakable resolve, Shou Yu finds not only solace, but a vision of the future, a leader who can rise above the chaos and reshape their fractured land. Determined to help his friend achieve greatness, Shou Yu pledges himself to Sun Shi. Through the unforgiving gauntlet of war, Shou Yu helps Sun Si amass the followers and prestige needed to gain power. But as growing tensions test their relationship, Shou Yu and Sun Shi must each weigh the cost of their own decisions. Can their devotion to each other survive the fires of conflict? So, this one sounds really good. But anyway, oh, one last thing. I know I've said that before. One last thing. I am super excited to say that tomorrow is Lanzan Lamanji's birthday. And so I did a little thing. It's on the post, but I will just share a picture. So this is what I did. I gave him a birthday cake. The picture's better on the posts, but it's pretty cute. I gathered all my lanzans and lit a candle for him. I only have one Len Shizui, which is why he was main stage for it. That's okay. Which one? The Twin Jades? I'm not sure. I don't know much about the Twin Jades or Joyful Reunion. I'm literally like 50 pages into Joyful Reunion. Thank you. My boy deserves a pretty birthday cake. Okay. Okay. Well, I will have to keep that in mind, although I probably will end up forgetting, unfortunately, and then be sad. That's okay. Sometimes the really sad books are the ones that hit us the best. Case in point, Modao Zushi. That shit's heartbreaking. I'm not into men, but I could be persuaded, but just had me rolling with laughter. Oh, goodness. All right, chapter 115. Which one are we stopping at tonight? Oh, we're reading 5 chapters tonight. Nice. Yup. I frequently need some good angst, which is why I love reading fan fiction. Nothing like making me cry tears of sadness at the beauty that is the perfection they write as they drag my boys through the ringer. All right. We are going to start at 25. I'm going to blow my nose first real quick. I'm Madam wasn't sure what Duan Ling wanted, so she just threw everything at the wall, including the bouncer. Nice. All right. 115, Sect News. All right. Before this, we had Yan Wuxi and Shen Qiao kind of browsing a night market sort of festival, and Yan Wuxi shoved a tiger doll into Shen Qiao's hands, and Shen Qiao kind of was touched by it. It was like, it's kind of cute. And Yan Wuxi, of course, being Yan Wuxi, chuckled and thought to himself, yes, like you, big cats, small cats, they're all cats. My venerable self spends my days in the company of cats. After strolling through the market, the two of them went back. Yan Wuxi's junior preceptor residence was already unsealed, and Yan Jian had bestowed upon him a new noble title, changing its name to the Duke of Wu's residence. Yan Wuxi now lived here. Meanwhile, the construction of Shen Qiao's Xuandu Monastery hadn't finished, so he could only stay here as a guest. Gotta do your dread reading soon. Goodness. The steward saw Yan Wuxi and quickly came over to report that the second young master had returned. He'd also brought someone with him, a person claiming to be Taoist Master Shen's shidi. Shen Qiao thought this strange, and when he saw Yu Xingyan and the person who'd arrived with him, he couldn't help being even more shocked. Shidi? Yeah. Shen Qiao definitely does give cat energy, and him being a cat is definitely very cute, Annika. Chapter 115, Sect News. The newcomer was Yuan Ying. After Shen Qiao had fallen from the cliff, everyone on Xuandu Mountain had been unable to help their panic, despite Yuai's best efforts to suppress it. Yuan Ying ranked 4th among Chief Ngui's disciples, and neither his temperament nor martial arts were particularly outstanding. He'd always remained a rather obscure character within the sect. After taking over Xuandu's Violet Palace, Yui felt that this shidi of his, being the most timid of their lot, would be unable to make any waves. Hence, he never paid much attention to Yuan Ying. He does have a lot in common with another cat-coded Taoist. Neither Yui's collaboration with the Gokturks nor his accepting the title of Yu Yang's Bishop of Great Peace and Perfected Master were secrets. At that time, the Gokturk Khaganate had been incredibly powerful. Both Zhou and Qi were forced to acquiesce with them. Yui had seen the Gokturks' ambitions and wanted to use their power to restore Xuandu Mountain to its former glory, so both parties remained in close communication. Duan Wen Yang had even invited Yui to the group ambush on Yan Wuxi outside the royal capital of Tuyuhun. The ambush had little overlap with Xuandu Mountain's interests, but Yui had still intervened to help. However, the Gokturks' plans for Xuandu Mountain didn't stop there. Xuandu Mountain had a long legacy, possessing extraordinary influence within the Jianghu and even in Taoism itself. If they could turn Xuandu Mountain sect into their puppet, they would not only grasp a crucial bit of power within the Central Plains Taoist discipline, but they'd get their hands on the hundreds of years' worth of wealth and martial arts classics Xuandu Mountain possessed as well. Xuandu Mountain had lost Chief Ngui and spent many years since with their mountain gates sealed, thus gradually falling into decline. Shen Qiao had already gone, and their members' hearts were scattered. There wouldn't be a second Chief Ngui, so in the eyes of the Gokturks, it had been the perfect time for them to infiltrate the sect. Duan Wen Yang had trained under Hulagu, but due to his mixed heritage, his status amongst the Gokturks was far inferior to his shidi Kunyi's. He urgently needed some major contribution to improve his standing, and coincidentally, he hit it off with the Eastern Khaganate's Ishbara Khagan, who wished to be independent. Unfortunately, the situation didn't develop as they had hoped. Though Ui had accepted the title of Yu Yang's Bishop of Great Peace and Perfected Master, he refused to let the Gokturk people interfere in the sect's administration, and he also refused to let Ishbar Kagan station his people on Xuandu Mountain. Thus, the cooperation between the two sides remained superficial, with no possibility of growing deeper. The Gokturks were naturally displeased. Xuandu Mountain was like a large, rich chunk of meat right before them, and yet they couldn't eat it. Yuan Ying didn't know much about these things. It was only after he'd left Xuandu Mountain to head to Qingcheng Mountain that he met Yu Shengyan, who was returning from the sword trial conference. Yu Shengyan had then told him about these matters one by one. Up until then, Yuan Ying had felt the atmosphere within his sect growing increasingly dismal. He sought out his third Shixian, Ui, several times, proposing that they should find their second Shixian, Shen Qiao, and bring him back to the sect so that he could revitalize it. Ui placated Yuan Ying gently a couple of times, then entrusted him with teaching young disciples. With Ui having put his trust in him, Yuan Ying could only set this matter aside for the time being. But who'd expect that troubles would arise out of nowhere? Their Shimei, Gu Hengbo, left the mountain without permission and without so much as farewell. Ui flew into a rage. He was furious. However, Yuan Ying was shocked speechless by what Gu Hengbo had written in her farewell letter to him. Afterward, he began paying more attention to Ui, looking for a chance to secretly investigate. It was then that an elder in Xuandu Mountain privately approached Yuan Ying, expressing his willingness to support him and have him replace Ui. The more Yuan Ying thought about it, the stranger things seemed. He pondered the letter Gu Hengbo had left him some more, and then quietly found his opportunity to leave Xuandu Mountain. Yuan Ying had rarely left home since childhood. Life on the mountain was monotonous, but he'd always been able to endure the loneliness. He spent his days either training or reading, and he lacked even a shred of a youth's characteristic liveliness or cleverness. Even Gu Hengbo, who was around the same age he was, couldn't bear it and instead became closer to Shen Qiao. Ouch. That's harsh. Be nice to yourself. He originally came from a wealthy family, but he had a childhood speech impediment, and as the family itself had many children, his parents never favored him. Even the household servants would pick and choose whom to serve, and thus they followed his parents in snubbing this young master. Once, when Yuan Ying was taken out of the house, the servant's negligence resulted in him getting lost. Only then did he meet Qi Fengui, who brought him back to the Yuan family and returned him to his parents. His mother and father saw that Qi Fengui was a Taoist who knew martial arts, so they took the opportunity to ask Qi Fengui to accept Yuan Ying as his disciple. Qi Fengui saw that Yuan Ying possessed a fair amount of aptitude, so he agreed. Hang on. In the last few years, yeah, he's got it rough. Like, so he's overlooked. The person his age doesn't want to play with him. His parents are not. He's not favored by his parents. The servants pick on him. Like, he had a speech impediment in his youth, which, going by the trend of this book, because people are terrible in this book, means probably his siblings and other kids picked on him because they're dicks. This poor guy. The last few years, Yuan Ying had visited his family only once, never mind leaving the mountain for training. His slightly dreary personality made him one of the least conspicuous presences on Xuandu Mountain. Nobody even realized that he'd quietly left Xuandu Mountain until a few days later. This is a little sad. After leaving the mountain, Yuan Ying had no experience of the world to fall back on and no idea where to go. He wanted to find Shen Qiao, but didn't know where he was. When he heard that Qing Chang Mountain was holding the sword trial conference, he thought that Shen Qiao might attend. He made inquiries all the way to Qing Chang Mountain, yet ended up intermittently hungry because he hadn't brought enough money. Yeah, the fact that they didn't even notice for a few days that's rough. After leaving the mountain, no, I already did that. Unexpectedly, he was a step too late. He had just arrived at the mountain foot when he saw people coming down one after another. It was here that Yuan Ying heard about the spectacular events that had happened at the conference and then that Yan Wuxi had taken Shen Qiao. He was fretting over this when he encountered Yu Shengyan, who had also been descending the mountain. Yuan Ying's appearance wasn't anything remarkable, and he was dressed like any other passerby. Few people would pay special notice to him, but Yu Shengyan noticed that whenever Yuan Ying heard people talking about Shen Qiao, he'd always look up and listen. This piqued Yu Shengyan's interest. When asked, Yuan Ying declared his family and sect. Only then did Yu Shengyan realize that he was Shen Qiao's shidi. After listening to Yuan Ying recount all this, Shen Qiao sank into contemplation for a long while. Finally, he asked, "Who is the elder who implied that they'd be able to support you in becoming the sect leader?" "It was Zhang Ben Chu," said Yuan Ying. "Elder Zhang." Xuandu Mountain had continued to this day, passed from one generation to the next. Though the mountains had been sealed off for a long time, the sect had quite a few internal branching factions. Taking Qi Fengwei's branch as an example, one could call it the orthodox main branch, hence the position of sect leader was theirs. For the other elders, their martial arts could be traced back to the second generation sect leader's fellow disciples. Though they all came from Xuandu's Violet Palace, just the same, each of them had one or two secret techniques that were only passed down within their specific branches. Therefore, strictly speaking, most of the elders of Xuandu Mountain belonged to the same generation as Shen Qiao and the others, but there were also those from more senior generations, his martial uncles. Zhang Benchu was one of them. I'm beginning to see why Yu Shengyan is Yan Wuxi's disciple, right? Not gonna lie, the way they're talking about main branch, second branch is giving me main Neji vibes, like the Hyuga clan from Naruto. Like, I know it's a common theme, but the special techniques being passed down aspect with the branches just instant made me think of Neji. UI was able to successfully become the sect leader because of 7 of the elders supported him. I trust that one of them must have been Zhang Benchu. Yuan Ying nodded and said, yes. What about Da Shixiang? Said Shen Qiao. You're ranked 4th. If he approached you, he must have approached Da Shixian already, right? Being Yuan Ying was a bit flustered. This I don't know. I spent all day inside the house reading and practicing the sword, or teaching those disciples swordplay. Having said this, he looked ashamed and said, Shixian, I'm sorry. Yeah, definitely a throwback. His apology wasn't only because he'd been unable to answer Shen Qiao's question, but more to express his regrets on not being able to do anything for Shen Qiao when he fell from the cliff before. But Shen Qiao wasn't angry. Instead, he patted Yuan Ying's shoulder the way he had in the past. No need to apologize. You dislike conflicts with others by nature, and you rarely leave the sect. But this time, you were able to realize that something was wrong and left the mountain to look for me. That's already incredible. So after meeting Zhang Benchu, you didn't tell UI about the situation? Yuan Ying flushed a little. No. I didn't. Previously, Wu Shimei told me that he was involved in your fall from the cliff, so I was wary of him. Shen Qiao gave a slight sigh and said no more. Yan Wushi's gaze paused for a moment on Shen Qiao's hand, which was resting on Yuan Ying's shoulder, and then he lazily said, "Since Yuan Shidi has arrived, he can stay here. Your complexion is sallow and your appearance malnourished. Let's have the chef build you back up." Shen Qiao glanced at him and thought to himself, "Who's your Shidi?" The words rolled about in his throat, but Taoist Master Shen was kind-hearted by nature, so he ultimately said nothing. Yu Shengyan, meanwhile, was stunned. He couldn't have imagined that a Shizhen, who, despite his warm act, possessed a cold heart, would look at Yuan Ying with special regard. And why would he lower his own seniority to talk to Yuan Ying as an equal? Where did that little stutterer borrow such a huge face from? To the point that my Shizhen has to honorably address you as Shidi? You're not even trembling in terror while shedding tears of gratitude. Ooh, he's a little jealous. Of course, Yuan Ying wasn't trembling in terror. He had no idea who Yan Wuxi was. When he heard the man say to let him stay, he quickly turned to look at his Shixian for his opinion. It was obvious that he was an obedient child who respected his master and his teachings. Shen Qiao saw him looking over and smiled. "Since sect leader Yan has sincerely invited you, you should accept." Yuan Ying had seen Yu Shengyan bowing to Yan Wuxi earlier, so he should have realized Yan Wuxi's identity then. Instead, he'd been caught unawares, only understanding now. He quickly cupped his hands. Thank you, sect leader Yan. Then I'll be troubling you." In the past, forget just one Yuan Ying, even if there'd been 10 Yuan Yings, Yan Wuxi wouldn't have paid them any attention. However, today was not the past. Yuan Ying was Shen Qiao's Shidi, which ultimately made him more unique in Yan Wuxi's eyes. However, it was clear that Qi Fengwei was truly unconventional when accepting disciples. He had 5 disciples beneath him, each with different temperaments, and disciples as simple and dull as Yuan Ying were rare indeed. Even when he's trying to be, like, kind of nice, it comes off not. Like, he's not even trying to be nice. Like, just, like, such a backhanded compliment, kind of. Poor Yuan Ying. After Yu Shengyan glumly led Yuan Ying away to settle him in, Shen Qiao looked at the wakey board in somewhat of a daze. Yan Wuxi immediately saw through his thoughts. "Do you wish to go to Xuandu Mountain?" Shen Qiao pulled himself together. "Yes, I want to go back and take a look." He'd wanted to go back for some time, but his previous strength had been insufficient and he didn't want to take risks. But things were different now. His strength had more or less returned. Even against exceptional figures like Buddhist Master Shu Ting, he'd still have a fighting chance. In any case, Xuandu Mountain would always be the sect where he'd grown up. Even if Shen Qiao had no intention of taking the position of sect teacher, he would not allow anyone with ulterior motives to attempt to destroy the pure land of his heart. If Zhang Benshu had sought out Yuan Ying, that meant that Yu Ai had failed to live up to his expectations. There must have been some conflicts between the two, perhaps significant enough that Zhang Benshu wished to expel Yu Ai from the position of sect leader. Considering this, along with the information Huanyue Sect had obtained, if anyone claimed that there was outside intervention involved, Shen Qiao would never believe it. "That's fine," said Yan Wuxi. "It's about time, anyway. With your current martial prowess, you might not be able to chop Yu Ai into 8 pieces, but stabbing a sword through his heart should be doable." Shen Qiao was left almost speechless. Just because I'm going doesn't mean I have to kill people. Could you not spout such bloodthirsty words all the time? Yan Wuxi gave him a playful smile. I fear that you won't be able to help it. Xuandu Mountain is like a chunk of rich meat that's been locked in a cage. Now that the cage has an opening, do you really expect those beasts that have been eyeing it hungrily for so long not to pounce? Like he wants to do either, right? Shen Qiao didn't like his description, but he also understood that he was right. This was Xuandu Mountain's current situation. Though Ui was a skilled martial artist, people often lacked caution when it came to internal affairs, just like Shen Qiao himself in the beginning. Actually, yes, added Yan Wuxi, I've received a message saying that after Huanyue Sect lost a large chunk of its influence in Chang'an, they grew very close to the Gok Turks. Shen Qiao frowned. You're saying that Huanyue Sect will also intervene in Xuandu Mountain's affairs? That I don't know. You'll be alone on this trip, so why don't I lend you one of my disciples to assist you? Which one would you like, Bianyan Mei or Yu Xingyan? These are Xuandu Mountain's internal issues, said Shen Qiao. How can I trouble them? Yan Wuxi deliberately said, You're saying that you want this venerable one to personally accompany you? Shen Qiao was an honest person. He'd never had such intentions. Yan Wuxi's words stunned him. He's getting stunned a lot this chapter, and last time too. Yan Wuxi didn't wait for a reply, but smiled and said, Unfortunately, I can't fulfill your wishes this time. My injuries from the previous battle with Shu Ting have yet to heal. Even if I go, I may not be able to help. Shen Qiao had personally checked his pulse last time, so he had a very clear idea of the state of his injuries. Yet, hearing Yan Wuxi now, for some reason, deep down, he was no longer sure. It's been so long, he said, reaching out. Why has it yet to heal? Yan Wuxi didn't move in the slightest. He maintained his posture, leaning against the pillow, and let Shen Qiao place his hand on his wrist. After freezing for a moment, Shen Qiao's expression fell. How can this be? Let's see what happens. Oh, yeah. Gotta write the time. Hey, 48. Chapter 116, Change of Sect Leaders. Originally, Shen Qiao had thought that Yan Wuxi's injuries weren't serious. After so many days, even if he wasn't fully healed, they should have recovered by half. But the moment he checked his pulse this time, he discovered that Yan Wuxi's meridians were congested, his circulation sluggish. There was a faint evidence of blood stasis. If anything, he seemed even worse than before. Was it Shu Ting? Could his martial prowess have achieved the level where his strikes only looked shallow but could it actually penetrate deep within? Phrasing. But if Shu Ting had reached this level of skill, how could he lose to Yan Wuxi, let alone allow Yan Wuxi to destroy his martial arts? Yan Wuxi covered his mouth and coughed twice, then solved the mystery for him. It's because I've been busy managing the affairs of Huanyue Sect these days. Our power and influence have been dispersed, so first we must slowly regather. Thus, I've had no time to heal, though I didn't expect it to be this serious. Shen Qiao frowned. It concerns your own health. How can you be so careless? Shen Qiao smiled. Or Yan Wuxi smiled, not Shen Qiao. He clearly wasn't taking it seriously. Don't worry, it's not a fatal injury. I'll recover in 5 days at most. Ah! Something fell. It's okay. Okay. There's a picture. Look at those tender eyes. Look at their faces. They're so sweet. Also, look at that size difference. Like, it's not huge, and part of that's probably due to the robe, but like it's a little bit. Hi, Mars Rover. You made it just in time for a picture. Right? Their faces are so tender. I love it. But yeah, sorry you had to work late, but I'm also glad you made it. You haven't missed much. Basically just Yuanyang, who's the shidi from Xuandu Mountain, came. We got a little bit of his backstory. He's a very unfortunate and sad boy. We feel very bad for him. And basically, Shen Qiao is now like, I need to go check out Xuandu Mountain. The situation is not great. UI seems to have done something that's really upset some of the elders of the sect. I need to go look into and or fix some part of the situation. And so Yan Wuxi was saying, hey, I can lend you some of my disciples. You can choose Bian Yan Mei or Yan Sheng Yun. And Shen Jiao's like, not you? So Yan Wuxi's like, I need to heal. Which Shen Qiao's like, bullshit. And checked his meridians, and actually some stuff's going down. So that's where we're at now. But yeah. Shen Qiao thought for a moment, then took out a porcelain bottle from his pocket and placed it on the table. Of course! The foundations of our internal cultivation, the Tao and the demonic, are antithetical. Antithetical? Antithetical. Okay. To one another, so I can't assist. Basically, they're opposites. Like, they fight each other. To one another, so I can't assist you. However, Xuandu Mountain has quite a few excellent medications for external injuries that have been passed down from generation to generation in Xuandu Mountain. This is one I've recently had a pharmacy prepare based off of a prescription. If you're willing to trust me, try taking it now. 3 pills a day, it can alleviate your injuries. Yan Wuxi picked up the porcelain bottle. It felt a little warm against his palm, still carrying some of Shen Qiao's body heat. His thumb caressed the delicate porcelain bottle with the air of indescribable suggestiveness. Of course he did. Shen Qiao didn't think much of it. He thought that Yan Wuxi was suspicious and didn't trust him, that he'd accepted it on the surface but would secretly throw the medicine away later. That would be a huge waste. In any case, the bottle contained quite a few precious medicinal ingredients, likely enough to save a fair number of people. So he added, if you're not going to take any, give it back to me. In any case, your injuries aren't anything serious. Why wouldn't I take it? Yan Wuxi was amused to see him staring anxiously at the porcelain bottle. He deliberately went against what Shen Qiao asked. He pulled out the supper and tipped 3 pills onto his palm, then took the plum juice in front of Shen Qiao and swallowed them with liquid. Also, tangent, I had plum juice in China. It's amazing. Like, for some reason, it's different, and it's so good. We need to figure out what they're doing with their plums that makes it delicious, because yum. Continuing back. I feel like the stiffness here is gone, he said, rubbing his chest. Suddenly, it's completely clear. This isn't a divine elixir. Yan Wuxi laughed. I was talking about the plum juice. I heard that Taoist cultivators can add even their bodily fluids to medications. You just drink this plum juice, so doesn't it contain your body fluids? Oh, Yan Wuxi. Yeah, Yan Wuxi, you shameless man. I agree, Truffle. What could Shen Qiao say in the face of such vulgar language? Even though he'd heard plenty of shameless words constantly throughout the day already, he couldn't stop the faint flush from vulgar language. Even though he'd heard plenty of shameless words constantly throughout the day already, he couldn't stop the faint flush from surfacing on his fair face. Yan Wuxi saw the shame and irritation in his gaze. Without a word, Shen Qiao braced his hand on the table to stand, ready to leave, but Yan Wuxi held down his hand and smiled. All right, it's the medicine that was effective, not the bodily fluids. When did you go and prepare the pills? How come I didn't know? Shen Qiao's face was stony. Must this humble Taoist report everything to sect leader Yan? Of course not. But I'm concerned about you. I'm worried that you won't have enough money and that somebody will take advantage of you. So, that's how foolish this humble Taoist appears in sect leader Yan's eyes? Yep, of course he's got to make it weird. Are you not? If you weren't foolish, could I have sold you to Sun Jingsing without you even being the wiser? But outwardly, Yan Wuxi continued to smile and said, That's not true. You've been improving day by day since you left the mountain. I've seen it myself. You're much smarter than you were in the past. Shen Qiao had endured and endured, but he finally couldn't take it anymore. Looking at sect leader Yan now, he doesn't seem like he has any internal injuries. Perhaps he'll be able to recover even faster if he talks some more. Yan Wuxi, it's not a hobby, it's a calling. That's not enough, said Yan Wuxi with a smile. Without the excellent medicine known as Taoist Master Shen, my recovery is destined to be slower. But I heard that Yan Jian sent you a sum of money. He did, said Shen Qiao. That money was used to build the Xuandu Monastery. Oh, hello, Esper Lady. Welcome. So the only things that have really happened are that the shidi that appeared is Yuan Ying, who is a very sad boy, very sad, overlooked boy, who came off the mountain and has been kind of looking for Shen Qiao. And this Xuandu Mountain situation is getting worse. A UI has apparently done something wrong, so the elders are looking for someone else to take over. And now Shen Qiao is basically saying, I need to go back. Yan Wuxi is like, you can borrow one of my disciples. And Shen Qiao's like, you're not coming? And so Yan Wushi's like, I'm injured right now. So now Shen Qiao checked. He's actually injured for once. And Shen Qiao gave him some pills. And now Yan Wuxi has made it weird. We just did this picture. So they look very soft. But yeah. Yes. Yan Wuxi keeps treating his disciples like library books. That's funny, Truffle. All right. Without the excellent medicine known as Taoist Master Shen, my recovery is destined to be slower. But I heard that Yan Jing sent you a sum of money. He did, said Shen Qiao. That money was used to build the Xuandu Monastery. So you're really planning on staying in Chang'an long term? That's hard to say. I wish to go back to Xuandu Mountain first to see if that matter can be resolved. In the future, when Xuandu Mountain wants to re enter the secular world, it will have an additional foothold in Chang'an. I think Yang Jian will make an ambitious and talented emperor. He isn't one of those foolish, prejudiced rulers, and he's tolerant towards the Taoist discipline. Perhaps Taoism will have the chance to welcome a second rise. He only did this to win over people's hearts, Yan Wuxi reminded him. Shen Qiao smiled. I know, but there's nothing wrong with that. Though I'm a Taoist practitioner myself, I dare not say that Taoism is wholly free from degenerates. Having hundreds of schools of thought all contending with each other is a blessing for the common folk. That way, we can avoid the kind of situation where an emperor plunders the citizens' assets in the interest of one discipline, leaving them destitute. Yang Jian is deeply influenced by Buddhism, yet he can still treat Confucianism and Taoism fairly. In my opinion, this is the magnanimity that a ruler should demonstrate. Most importantly, if Xuandu Mountain wants to enter the secular world, now is a good time. Yanwushi raised an eyebrow. Didn't you admire everything about Chief Ingui? Why are you contradicting his opinion on this matter? That was then, and this is now, said Shen Qiao. No such opportunity existed when my late master was alive. If he were still here, I'm sure he'd agree with my ideas. Oh, if you put it that way, this venerable one understands. Understands what? Whenever you want to do something, you'll just say that Chief Ingui would agree. Whenever you don't, you'll just say that you're respecting Chief Ingui's will. Either way, he's dead. He can't jump out to refute you. Harsh, but fair, I guess? I would have phrased it differently, but he's not wrong. He worded this deliberately, but to his surprise, Shen Qiao didn't grow angry from embarrassment. Instead, he thought for a moment and then smiled slightly. You're not wrong about that. As he smiled, his eyes sparkled, shimmering brightly until the room seemed to fill with light. Even Yan Wushi's gaze upon him couldn't help but still for a moment. My late master was more reasonable than anyone else. He would have understood my thoughts. Yan Wushi raised his eyebrow. He completely disagreed with Shen Qiao's constant praise of his Shifu, but he'd always boasted himself as graciously tolerant. Naturally, he wasn't going to split hairs over a dead man. I think he's being a little generous with naturally tolerant. From this, one could see that though Shen Qiao was righteous by nature, he was by no means a person bound by rules. This was precisely why, out of his 5 disciples, Chief Ingui had ultimately chosen Shen Qiao to be his successor. Since you accepted that title from the court, even if you're not obliged to obey his orders, you still have a normal relationship with the court, Yan Wuxi said. As such, Xuandu Mountain's affairs can't be completely considered your own personal matters. With the current relationship between Huanyue Sect and the Su dynasty, if Yang Jian knew you were going to Xuandu Mountain, even if I said nothing, he would still ask me to help. I will let Bian Yanmei accompany you on this trip. He is more tactful and will be able to lend you some assistance. Now that he'd mentioned this reason, Shen Qiao no longer declined. He nodded. Thank you very much, then. He hesitated for a moment and said, You're injured. It's better for you to rest quietly the next few days. Don't keep jumping about everywhere. Yan Wushi's smile widened. Ah, Qiao, are you worried about me? No, said Shen Qiao. You're lying, said Yan Wushi. Shen Qiao said nothing. Then why did you even ask? Yan Wushi sighed. Although I'm very moved, I'm doomed to disappoint your expectations. Don't forget that that bald old donkey is still waiting for me to take care of him. In the end, he was still the grand and lofty state preceptor of Sho, a leader of Buddhism. The grand and lofty. Nope, I can't give him the cold shoulder for too long now, can I? From what I saw, you had no problems doing so, Shen Qiao thought to himself. But he caught on a specific word in Yan Wushi's reply. You wish to kill him? I'm going to exchange him for another astronomical benefit, Yan Wushi replied lazily. As for what astronomical benefit that was, if he was unwilling to say, Shen Qiao wouldn't be able to pry it out of him, so he asked no further. A few days later, upon hearing that Shen Qiao was preparing to return to Xuandu Mountain, Yuan Ying was delighted and came to ask when Shen Qiao would depart. But Shen Qiao didn't plan on taking him, as Xuandu Monastery was still under construction and needed someone to supervise. Yuan Ying was undoubtedly the best candidate. Upon hearing Shen Qiao's plans, Yuan Ying's face immediately fell, his joy dissolving into disappointment. The change was so unbearable. It was so obvious it was almost unbearable. This poor dude. He's like, we're gonna go save the mountain? I'm gonna go save the mountain. You get to deal with administrative paperwork and building a building. And politics. Why do I hear Yan Wushi's praise of Shu Ting in the same tone as Mu Qing's, the center of the universe, the beloved of heaven, when he's talking about Shai Lian? I could see that a little bit, yeah. Yeah. Shen Qiao thought this odd. She's Shidi. See, Shidi, do you wish to return to Xuandu Mountain that badly? No, it's not that. Yuan Ying struggled to explain his unhappiness. These days, Yu Shengyan had been toying with him whenever he had nothing to do. Yuan Ying couldn't out-talk him, and though he was stronger than Yu Shengyan, Yu Shengyan never made it physical. Yuan Ying was an honest child. There was no way he could strike first. He also thought that, as a guest, he couldn't make things difficult for his heir Shixian, so he'd endured it all. He'd long ranked Yu Shengyan at the top of his list of most troublesome characters. Oh, so he's getting bullied by Yu Shengyan. Shen Qiao patted him on the shoulder. I know you've devoted yourself to cultivating the Tao, ignoring all external affairs, but I can't think of a more suitable person than you to supervise the construction of Xuandu Monastery. I'll try to come back as soon as possible, but I can only trouble you to help out first. Yuan Ying hurriedly said, Shixian, you go ahead. I'll go every day to supervise. You don't need to worry. Thank you, Ying. Shixian, you don't need to thank me. We trained under the same Shizun, but I'm the most useless one. I've never been able to help much, and I've always felt very uneasy inside. It's rare for you to give me a test, so I'm very excited. After such a long separation, this sea shidi, who always jumped to hide behind others, had also matured. Shen Qiao was quite pleased. By the time he'd made proper arrangements, Yan Wuxi had already left Chang'an one step ahead of him. Now, Shen Qiao and Bianyan Mei also set off for Xuandu Mountain. And they're leaving Yu Shengyan behind, so he's going to keep poking at him. Poor boy. Bianyan Mei was a rather interesting person. The way he did things was interesting, and the way he spoke was interesting as well. But he had an excellent sense of what and what not to do. Unlike Yan Wuxi, who'd often embarrass Shen Qiao into a rage by going overboard. Traveling with such a person was naturally as pleasant as a spring breeze. Furthermore, Shen Qiao himself had never been hard to get along with and also made for an excellent companion. He didn't enjoy showing off and was willing to patiently listen to others. Not to mention, if they ran into danger, he'd become the most reliable of helpers. Anyone would wish to have this type of friend. Bianyan Mei hadn't interacted much with Shen Qiao, but he'd spent a great deal of time in the imperial court and possessed an acute insight into the human heart. People like Shen Qiao would never betray their friends, so Bianyan Mei was naturally willing to make friends with him. As the saying went, having one more friend meant having one more avenue of retreat. Though Bianyan Mei had been taught and raised completely by Yan Wuxi and was intrinsically quite similar to his Shifu, he was a bit slicker and more sophisticated by several notches. In addition, Bianyan Mei had already realized how Yan Wuxi felt, so he deliberately tried to make nice with Shen Qiao on the journey. So, of course, the two of them got along quite well. They both possessed Qinggong and had swift horses with them. If they traveled day and night, they arrived in 3 to 5 days. They instead chose to travel by day and rest during the night, it'd still take only a dozen or so days. If Shen Qiao had been alone, traveling through the night wouldn't have been an issue, but with Bianyan Mei accompanying him, he naturally couldn't force him to rush towards their destination. So, after about 10 days, the pair finally arrived at Xuandu town at the foot of Xuandu Mountain. Seeing the bustling town, Bianyan Mei couldn't help but smile. In the past 2 years, Xuandu town has become more prosperous, he said. I also visited a few years ago, and I only remember that there were fewer people then. Shen Qiao also hadn't been here for a long time. Bianyan Mei, road trip with my stepdad. Awesome! Maybe. I also visited a few years ago and only remember that there were fewer people then. Shen Qiao also hadn't been here for a long time. He looked around and said, yes, though the Green Mountains remain unchanged, things might be constant, but people are not. He'd grown up in the mountains since childhood and was also very familiar with Xuandu town. The feelings he was having at this site was naturally much stronger than Bianyan Mei's. At this moment, the two of them were sitting at the tea house, resting and drinking tea. When the nearby waiter heard their words, he came over and interjected, I fear that this kind of excitement won't last long. What do you mean? The waiter sighed. You too must also know that these fields below the mountain belong to the Taoist priest of Xuandu Mountain. The previous masters sympathized with our difficult lives and charged very little rent, for which we are grateful. Otherwise, Xuandu town wouldn't have the bustle and liveliness it does these days. But I don't know what the new leader thinks. A few days ago, he suddenly said he would increase this year's rent and by a very large amount. How will we endure this? Even those who run inns and restaurants or tea houses like ours have to pay rent. If this continues, who'd dare to continue with their businesses? Our boss said that once this month finishes, we should pack things up and return to our hometown. The new sect leader? UI? The waiter shook his head. I don't think his surname was Yu. I heard that he only became sect leader last month, that he was previously perfected Master Qi's eldest disciple. Tan? Yes, his surname was Tan. Shen Qiao and Bian Mei exchanged a glance. But I heard before that it was sect leader Yu. Oh, wait. But I heard before that it was sect leader Yu, said Shen Qiao, suppressing the towering waves of alarm rising within his heart. How did it change to sect leader Tan? The waiter scratched his head. This lowly one doesn't know. After a couple more idle words, he saw another guest enter for tea, and quickly went over to greet them, putting Shen Qiao's table aside. Shen Qiao slowly furrowed his brows and said, How did Da Shixian end up becoming sect leader? Where's Ui? We set out at the end of last month and arrived here at the start of the new one, so it's also possible we missed the news along the way, said Bian Mei. We can ask someone about that later. Taoist Master Shen need not feel anxious. We can head up the mountain after we clarified the situation. Very well. To understand the situation, the two of them had to first find a place to stay. Either a relay station or an inn, which were always good places to ask for news. Bian Mei was no stranger to this, and took to it with the ease of a light carriage on a familiar road. He led Shen Qiao into an inn that was neither large nor small. Merchants and the people of the Jianghu all share a particular characteristic, he said. Unless they come from a wealthy family, they will never go to places that are too high class. On the contrary, most of them would choose average places like this. Asking for news here is the best option. Shen Qiao naturally had no objection and nodded in agreement. Xuandu Violet Palace was also a major Taoist sect. Since Ui had announced that he was opening the mountain gates, many young people had come here seeking a master to learn martial arts under. Some of the people were descended from people of the Jianghu, but came from families which had fallen into decline by the current generation. Others had heard many stories of martial heroes and yearned for the flash of steel and blades. There was no lack of people with good aptitude among them, but without exception, absolutely none of them were from a wealthy family. If they were, their families would have naturally arranged better futures for them, so they had no need to come all the way here, crossing thousands of miles to seek a master. However, it was as Bian Mei had said. Due to this, they would choose to rest at this kind of an inn, neither too luxurious nor too shabby. The main lobby on the first floor was filled with the clamor of various noises. Bian Mei and Shen Qiao entered and found a place to sit down. Coincidentally, several young people with swords sat next to them, and there was no need for them to ask around more. The other party had already started talking about the recent events of the Jianghu. Have you heard? Said one of the youths. The Huanyue Sect leader sent a letter of challenge to Hulagu. Shen Qiao was about to pick up his cup, but when he heard this, his heart shook and his body froze. Ooh, Yan Wuxi, you about to be in trouble. You know Shen Qiao doesn't like it when you lie to him. In fact, it is one of the things that he hates. Hey. Yamwushi's about to be in the doghouse. Although he's more of a wolf than a dog. Yamushi just can't stay away, huh? Love that that's how he finds out, right? That's also going to come back to bite Yanwushi in the ass. Like, you didn't tell me? I'm gonna be in the wolf house now. Well, the fact that I can totally picture him with like wolf ears and a big bushy tail and just being like, ah, ciao. Ah, ciao. One second. Okay. 117. Care and thought. Those who'd never witnessed Hulagu's strength firsthand might not feel anything upon hearing this news. From their perspective, Yan Wuxi had been able to come out unscathed from a group ambush from 5 great martial arts experts, so he indeed should have the ability and confidence to challenge him. So as soon as this news fell, it was like a drop of water splashing into a pot of oil, and the surroundings immediately began to boil over. Surprise or excitement colored the faces of many, and they all began to ask for details. When did that happen? Just a few days ago. They said that sect leader Yan issued a letter of challenge to Hulagu. Hulagu was eating at the time, and he was so shocked he leapt up and almost choked to death. Little Red Riding Hood, you know what? I am so certain that that exists that I am going to Google it right now, and I am positive that it's going to come up. Come on, internet. All right. I am not seeing anything off the top of my head, but I'm going to look this weekend. I leave you alone for a week and you're challenging people to death duels? I can't leave you alone for a second. Okay. Okay. You speak as if you were watching right next to him. Who's Hulagu? You don't even know Hulagu? Then do you know Chief Ingui? Nonsense. Would I come seeking a master at Xuandu Mountain if I didn't? How come you don't know? You haven't heard of Hulagu? More than 20 years ago, Chief Ingui fought the Gok Turk master, then forced him to swear not to enter the Central Plains for 2 decades. At the Qingchang Mountain Sword Trial Conference, Hulagu defeated Shen Qiao with only a few moves. Not necessarily. Many people said that while Liu Li Palace didn't announce the identity of the #1 martial artist in all the land, Hulagu was exactly that, both in name and in reality. Yan Wuxi must have been dissatisfied with this, and that's why he sent him a letter of challenge. If you're looking for reading this week, I'm reading System Error Wandering Cultivator. System Error Wandering Cultivator. I love Shen Yuan Wandering Cultivator AUs. I just read one today, actually. During lunch. There we go. Don't bring it up anymore. I originally wanted to go to the sword trial conference, but my knack of a mom wouldn't let me. She said it was too dangerous. Before I came to Xuandu Mountain to look for a master this time, I had to secretly discuss things with my father first and ask him to stall my mother. Only then could I come out. The cacophony of voices gradually faded into a murmur in Shen Qiao's ears. His thoughts were still stuck on the words from before. It wasn't until Bien Yanmei shoved the cup into his hand that he realized that he'd remained in the same position the entire time, completely still. I think I might have read that. I mean, that's a pretty general description, but it sounds very familiar. Is he kind of like mistaken as a fairy? If he is, then I have read it. Thank you very much. Shen Qiao took the cup and poured some green bamboo juice into it. That's another thing I want to try. I want to try bamboo juice. Before we left, did Sect Leader Yan bring this up to you? As soon as he had asked it, he felt that this question was somewhat unnecessary. Yan Wushi's personality meant he often did unexpected things. Even he might not have seen this coming, had they still been alive, let alone his disciples. But Bian Yanmei's answer was even more surprising. The challenge letter is real. Ah, okay. Again, still might have read it, but it's not the one I'm thinking of. Shen Qiao was stunned. Isn't he still injured? Bian Yanmei pondered for a moment, then said, I have a couple of thoughts about this matter. Shizun didn't do it on a whim or to make a show of doing something shocking. There is a reason behind it. Huh. Grass jelly juice sounds like something that might be at my Asian market. If I can't find bamboo juice, I'll try that. I wish to know the details. I heard that while you were on Qingcheng Mountain, you and Hulagu fought. Shen Qiao nodded. We did. Hulagu has emerged from 20 years of seclusion, and he's even stronger than in the past. I fear that fighting him to a draw at my current level would be incredibly difficult. Alright, I will write that down. Whist waves. That will help. Thank you. Shen Qiao had always been honest, and he believed that victory was victory and defeat was defeat. He didn't find it difficult to talk about his own defeat. No matter how formidable the enemy was, he'd only tell it like it was. He'd never exaggerate or dress it up, and that's why we respect you. Bian Yanmei said, in Taoist Master Shen's opinion, if Shizun and Hulagu fought, what would be his chance of victory? Shen Qiao frowned and thought for a moment, then said, if he's injured, it might be 50-50. But this only held if Yan Wuxi was in good condition, having abundant internal power, and no injuries at all. Hearing this reply, worry revealed itself on Bian Yanmei's face. It was a long time before he spoke again. I'm certain the Gok Turks will intervene in Xuandu Mountain's affairs, he said. You killed Kunyi, and Hulagu is doubtless unwilling to let that slide. He might even disregard his honor as a master martial artist and personally participate himself. But now that Shizun has sent this challenge letter, Hulagu won't be able to spare the time to concern himself with you, so it'd reduce some of the obstacles before Taoist Master Shen. Shen Qiao froze. He'd thought about many possibilities, and the ones he'd considered the most, or most likely, was simply that Yan Wuxi wished to conquer the throne of the #1 martial artist in the world. Shen Qiao had never expected that the true answer would be this one. Seeing Shen Qiao's reaction, a look of self-deprecation appeared on Bian Yanmei's face. Does Taoist Master Shen not believe me? I don't blame you. Us demonic practitioners have always been selfish and self-serving, marching to our own tune. When have we ever made sacrifices for anyone else? Shen Qiao sighed softly. That's not it. Please don't misunderstand. But he couldn't say that he'd never thought that way before. Actually, that's not all, Bian Yanmei said. The reason Shizun spared Shu Ting's life was so that he could take him to Tian Tai's sect to exchange him for the last volume of the Shu Yang strategy. Again, Shen Qiao froze a little. The Shuyang strategy consisted of 5 scrolls, and only one of them was related to the martial arts of the demonic discipline. Yan Wuxi had already read that one, and he'd fully repaired the flaws within his demonic core, and so the remaining scroll was of little use to him. One could almost say useless. Therefore, it wasn't difficult to guess why he wished to obtain the scroll Tiantai Sect was safeguarding. Yes. It's according. It is very much according, Annika. With Shen Qiao's intelligence, he naturally thought of the answer. It is said that during his early years, Shu Ting's goal clashed with Tiantai Sect's, he said. Therefore, after his master passed away in meditation, he left the sect and established his own. Why would Tiantai Sect be willing to exchange the Shuyang strategy scroll for Shu Ting? Yay, a corpse and a hostage! Tiantai Sect regards Shu Ting as a traitor. Shizun spared his life so Tiantai Sect themselves could deal with him. They need to repay Shizun's favor somehow. Naturally, you won't be able to obtain the original, but a copy should still be possible. We'd expect nothing less from Yan Wuxi, right? Shen Qiao sighed. Sect leader Yan has put much care and thought into this matter. It'd be a lie to claim that he wasn't shaken at all deep down. However, Bian Mei also understood that even if Shen Qiao was shaken, he had no need to express those feelings out loud, so he didn't pause for too long. He quickly continued. No need to worry, Taoist Master Shen. Shizun's injuries aren't serious, and the battle with Huligu is slated to be half a month from now. It's enough time for Shizun to recuperate. Someone who could stay in seclusion outside the Great Wall for 20 years, remaining indifferent to worldly affairs, was bound to be a person without much ambition regarding the secular world. Huligu was such a person. Though his status and standing among the Gokturks meant he couldn't completely sever himself from the movement of the Khaganate, he was still a warrior first and foremost. Hence, to Huligu, Yan Wuxi's challenge letter was more compelling than Xuandu Mountain and their ilk. Half a month was neither long nor short. If he chose to attend the engagement, he wouldn't spare any further attention for the matters at Xuandu Mountain. With just a bit of thought, Shen Qiao could understand all the reasons and consequences. If Yan Wuxi had pointed out before him, one by one, he still might have been moved, and he might have politely declined, but the shock he'd received couldn't be comparable to what he felt right now. I take it back. Shen Qiao isn't the cat Yan Wuxi is, right down to the questionable ideas of what good gift is. Well, if he's a cat, he's a big cat. Eventually, Yan Wuxi still wouldn't be able to avoid fighting Huligu, even without Shen Qiao in the picture. But that would be in the future. He'd chosen to issue the letter of challenge right now, and that decision, undoubtedly, had been largely due to Shen Qiao. A man so fickle and selfish had done something that even many sentimental people might be unable to do. How could Shen Qiao not be moved? You know how cats are always like, have a mouse? This is the human equivalent of that. It is pretty funny, Truffle. Have a scroll that I know you can't obtain any other way, which I'll trade for a person. He does have an unfortunate tendency to trade people. Bian Mei stealthily observed Shen Qiao's reaction. He had gone completely silent. He wondered to himself if Shen Qiao had gone catatonic from all the emotion and called out to him, Taoist Master Shen? But Shen Qiao didn't weep with gratitude the way he expected. After his initial silence, he appeared incredibly calm. Whatever the case, we're already here. After all the help your Shizen has offered, if I don't resolve the issues here first, how would I have the face to meet him? Bianyan nodded. Let's ask someone about the situation on the mountain first. Then we can ascend it tomorrow. Very well. Both men exuded refinement and grace, especially Shen Qiao, who was still carrying a longsword and dressed in Taoist robes. Before long, he attracted the attention of the young man next to him, and one of the ones who'd been just talking loudly mustered the courage to speak to them. May I ask if this Taoist master is from Xuandu's Violet Palace? Shen Qiao had been hoping for an opportunity to find a disciple who'd come down the mountain so he may ask his questions, but when he saw them, he had a new idea. No, he said. This humble Taoist is Shen Qiao. I came here to ascend the mountain and visit a friend. What about you, young friends? Hearing Shen Qiao's no, the young man was somewhat disappointed, but since he'd taken the initiative to come and ask, he couldn't really just brush Shen Qiao off. We came to seek apprenticeship. This one is Duan Ying, and these two are my friends, Zhang Qiao and Zhang Bojing. The three cupped their hands at Shen Qiao and Bianyan Mei. Shen Qiao nodded and slightly raised his own hands to return the greeting. Duan Ying didn't mind, but the other two were displeased when they saw how this Taoist had only nodded and raised his hands in a perfunctory greeting. He hadn't even stood. In truth, with Shen Qiao's actual identity, no one would have criticized him if he simply hadn't moved at all, never mind only lifting his hands in greeting. Duan Ying asked, since Taoist Master Shen Qiao is visiting his friends on the mountain, he must know the perfected masters of Xuandu Mountain, right? We've long admired the grace exemplified by Xuandu's Violet Palace, so we wish to join the sect. We heard that Xuandu Mountain only accepts disciples twice a year on the spring and autumn equinoxes, but the timing of our arrival was unfortunate. Could we ask Taoist Master Shen Qiao to introduce us? When he asked this question, his two companions also looked at Shen Qiao with expectant gazes. Shen Qiao gave a laugh and said, Actually, I'm not familiar with either the sect leader or the elders, but rather with another Taoist priest on the mountain, one responsible for lighting the stoves, so I won't be able to help you. Their expressions filled with disappointment. Seeing this, Shen Qiao added, However, every 5 days, several Taoist priests will come down the mountain to make purchases. There's a pastry shop selling snacks next to the inn, which is a favorite of the priests on the mountain. If you keep an eye on it, you might be able to meet them soon. Hearing him say this, Duan Ying and the rest glanced at each other and then said, If that's true, thank you very much for informing us, Taoist Master. Shen Qiao waved his hand. No need to be polite. If you can enter the sect, this humble Taoist will have 3 more friends at Xuandu Mountain. Isn't that quite an honor as well? Duan Ying felt that this Taoist priest was not only good-looking, but he also spoke in a kindly manner, so he instantly formed a favorable impression of him. He spoke quite a few words of thanks and started discussing Taoist classics with Shen Qiao. It wasn't until Zhang Bojing and Zhang Qiao urged him that he bid farewell. Bianyan Mei had spent the entire time watching dispassionately from the sidelines. Now he finally spoke up. That Zhang Qiao's aptitude is quite decent. The other 2 are only mediocre. Shen Qiao smiled, but didn't speak. In fact, he preferred Duan Ying out of the 3. It wasn't because he'd spoken with him the most, but because Duan Ying had been respectful and courteous even without knowing their identities. This made him appear much steadier and gentler compared to the other 2. Person's aptitude was naturally important, but their sense of martial honor was even more so. If it were up to Shen Qiao, he would pass over the better qualified Zhang Qiao in favor of the comparatively mediocre Duan Ying. This is why we love him. That night, Shen Qiao and Bian Mei stayed at the inn. As luck would have it, the room shared by Duan Ying and his companions was very close to theirs. The trio heeded Shen Qiao's words. Early the next morning, they began keeping watch at the pastry shop. Sure enough, they didn't need to wait too long before two young Taoists arrived at the shop. A glance was enough to tell them that the two had come down from Xuandu Mountain. Duan Ying and the others were overjoyed and quickly went up to them, explaining who they were and why they'd come to the mountain. They asked the Taoist priests if they could take them up the mountain, as potential party refused. Xuandu Mountain only accepts disciples on the spring and autumn equinoxes every year. You didn't arrive during the correct period. Please wait until the next time. Duan Ying pleaded, "We have admired Xuandu Mountain for a long time, and we're willing to accept hardships. It's fine even if we can only be accepted and enlisted as lay disciples. We ask the two Taoist masters to please help us." The slightly older Taoist was somewhat friendlier and more good-natured. He said to them, "Some things have been happening at Xuandu Mountain recently. The perfected masters on top are all busy and they won't have the leisure to accept disciples. You truly came at a bad time. Why not go to Qingcheng Mountain to try your luck?" Xuandu Mountain and Qingcheng Mountain were nowhere near each other. At that distance, one couldn't just casually walk over. Hearing those words, Duan Ying and his companions' faces practically overflowed with misery. They pleaded again and again, but the Taoists refused to waver, so the three youths could only leave disappointed. Yun Cheng Shidi, why did you answer them so resolutely?" the older Taoist said. Perhaps, when we go back and report this, Shizun would be willing to accept them." "The mountain is going through troubled times now, and Shizun is clearly unwilling to interfere. How could he possibly accept any disciple now?" "Then why not have them find the acting sect leader? I find them quite pitiful." "The acting sect leader likely can't spare the time either. I heard that people from Huanyue Sect will arrive soon. Who knows if the acting sect leader will even be able to hold on to his position then." "Don't be so harsh with your words, Yun Cheng Shidi. What are you scared of? No one can hear me. I must say, times were better when sect leader Shen was here. Everyone was harmonious and friendly, unlike now, where everyone is suspicious of everyone else. Will we even have peaceful days again? Ever?" The young Taoist known as Yun Cheng Shidi curled his lips. However, the next moment, his expression immediately transformed into one of shock. Sect leader Shen? Seeing the person in front of him now, Yun Cheng, whose tongue was normally so agile, was shocked into stuttering. "Cat got your tongue?" Oh, great. Ah! $143, 4 to 5. Okay. 118, Conference. The two Taoist priests were as dumbfounded as if they had seen a ghost in broad daylight, but Shen Qiao took no pride in frightening them. "It has been a while, Xiao Yun Chang," he said. "You've grown quite a bit taller." Then his gaze shifted to the other person, his expression as gentle as it had been in the past, almost unchanged. "Lian has also made great leaps in his martial arts. You noticed me even before I appeared." Lian and Yun Chang exchanged a glance, and after their initial moment of panic, they quickly bowed. Greetings to Shen Shishu. We hope Shen Qiao is well. How has Shifu been? Asked Shen Qiao. Thank you, Shishu, for your inquiry. Shifu is in good health. Ever since Shishu left the mountain, his esteemed self would often talk about you. If he knew that your esteemed self was safe and sound, he'd be overjoyed. Would he? There's been a lot of back talk. Though their Shifu was from the same generation as Shen Qiao, he was much older and had devoted himself to his cultivation on Xuandu Mountain. He rarely concerned himself with the mundane affairs of the sect. It was only during his last years that he had accepted these two disciples. So I was not wrong. Okay. I also miss Kong Shixiang very much, Shen Qiao said. I was about to head up the mountain to say hello to him. Upon hearing these words, the two young Taoists immediately showed completely different reactions. Yun Cheng's face shone with delight, while Li An's expression was filled with concern. Shen Qiao took in all these shifts in emotion, then deliberately said, Why, you're not coming with me? Yun Cheng was an outspoken young man. Before Li An could speak, he already said, Shen Shishu is willing to return? We couldn't be happier. Shen Qiao smiled. But I don't think your Leon Shixian looks particularly happy. Leon quickly cupped his hands and said, Shen Shishu speaks too seriously. It's just that sect leader Yu's whereabouts are currently unknown, meaning the situation is somewhat chaotic. We don't wish to be caught up in it, so we originally planned on going down the mountain and lying low until the storm passes. We didn't expect to encounter you. So basically they were planning to kind of, I don't want to say desert, because desert is a little too hardy of a word, but kind of flee the mountain for a little bit. Oops. And got caught by their old sect leader. God, that'd be like the good kids, like, getting caught the first time they're sneaking out the window, like, by a neighbor walking their dog, and just being like, how you doing, friend? Oh my goodness. Where am I? In the beginning, when Shen Qiao had fought Kunyi and lost, falling from the cliff, the Jianghu had been rife with rumors for a period of time. Some of those rumors made their ways back to Xuandu Mountain, greatly impacting Shen Qiao's reputation. Though no one said anything, they'd all believed that Shen Qiao's loss to Kunyi had caused Xuandu Mountain's standing to plummet precipitously, losing them a great deal of face. This attitude meant that afterward, when Ui became sect leader, few people opposed him. They all thought that Ui had the means and capability that maybe he could lead Xuandu Mountain to best its revival. But at that time, Li An and Yun Cheng's Shifu hadn't been optimistic about Ui, so he forbade them from participating in sect affairs. This master and his two disciples stayed out of everyone's sight, maintaining a weak presence within the sect. Both his disciples were young and eager for achievement, so while they obeyed their Shifu's orders, they couldn't help but silently criticize him deep down. However, recent developments had been beyond their expectations, proving their Shifu correct. Ui encountered a bottleneck in his cooperation with the Gokturks, and at this time, the situation in the Central Plains was already changing constantly and rapidly. With the changeover of the northern dynasties from Zhou to Su, the Gokturks' hold over the Central Plains was gradually weakening, causing Xuandu Mountain's standing to become increasingly awkward. And yet, right at this moment, the sect leader Ui suddenly disappeared overnight. Xuandu Mountain was left without its head, and so Tan Yuanchun, the eldest of Chief Ingwe's disciples, temporarily took over the position. Temporarily. But though Tan Yuanchun Yuan Chun used to be an elder, his personality wasn't forceful enough to maintain a firm grip on the sect. Therefore, many people on Xuandu Mountain voiced their objections. Among them was Elder Liu Yue, who opposed him the most vehemently. Both parties were locked in a silent power struggle, and the two sides inevitably tried to win over others to increase their influence. Lian and Yun Chang's Shifu used his seclusion as an excuse to avoid seeing outsiders, but people came knocking for his disciples several times. This annoyed them to the point that they were left with no choice but to swap errands with others, giving themselves the duty of going down the mountain to make purchases. In fact, they were using the opportunity to hide and obtain some peace and quiet. After listening to them relate the sequence of events, Shen Qiao was silent for a moment. Then he said, Yu Ai was the sect leader, so he possessed martial skills far beyond average. Furthermore, he was on Xuandu Mountain, so how could he just disappear overnight? Did the two of you hear any rumors? They both shook their head. Shifu gave us orders. We're still young, so we're not allowed to participate in sect affairs. However, just a few days before Yu Shishu disappeared, a Gokturk envoy came up the mountain wanting us to do something, but Yu Shishu refused. The two sides parted on bad terms, so many people said that Yu Shishu's disappearance was related to the Gokturks. This matched most of what Yuan Ying had said. Shen Qiao asked, Did you recognize the Gokturk envoy from that day? Both Li An and Yun Chang said that they didn't. The two young disciples didn't know much, so at this point in the conversation, there was nothing more to ask them. I wish to head up the mountain, Shen Qiao said. Will you come with me, or will you stay at the foot of the mountain for now? The pair looked at each other, then Yun Chang said, We'll go up the mountain with you, Shen Shishu. Least you end up at a disadvantage. Lian had no time to cover Yun Chang's mouth, so he could only remain silent, which could count as him tacitly agreeing with his shidi's words. It's like, well, now you've done it. Shen Qiao smiled. Though Yun Chang spoke a little thoughtlessly, he was frank and straightforward. Lian was slightly more fearful, but he wasn't a bad person either, otherwise he would have spoken up and refused. Never mind, you finally found some free time to come down the mountain and play, he told them. Stay at the foot of the mountain and enjoy yourselves. It won't be too late if you can return 2 days later. Lian had seen that Shen Qiao's ascent up the mountain couldn't be a good thing. Perhaps he wanted to regain his position as sect leader, which would inevitably require the support of the elders. At first, he'd thought that Shen Qiao was going to drag them up the mountain, using them to make their Shifu stand in line, but to his surprise, Shen Qiao mentioned nothing of it. Lian had purely been judging his upright character through his own moral failings. Curse of Duckling strikes again. Yep. Shen Qiao's candid, straightforward manner made Lian feel a little embarrassed, so he quickly spoke up to express his opinion. With the position of sect leader currently yet to be determined, Xuandu Mountain cannot have even a single day of peace. Shen Shishu, your esteemed self, was the only sect leader who perfected Master Qi personally designated. The implication within his words was that though they wouldn't interfere if they had to support someone, they were sure to choose Shen Qiao. This tiny bit of consideration was really too meager when placed before Shen Qiao, but it was obviously not Shen Qiao's style to quibble with the young man. Thank you very much. He patted Lian's shoulder and said, Don't make mischief or trouble here below the mountain. Come back soon. His tone was ordinary, as if this was just some everyday chiding. Any passerby would have thought that Shen Qiao was only hiking up the mountain for some exercise. The two young Taoists stared blankly at Shen Qiao and Bian Yanmei's retreating backs for a while, then Yun Chang suddenly said, Shixian, We should have gone up the mountain with Shen Shishu just now. Shizen's words last time were full of self-blame that he hadn't stood up to speak out for Shen Shishu that day. If his esteemed self saw us shirking responsibility and cowering away, he'd be disappointed. Right now, Elder Liu wishes to become sect leader so badly, I fear he won't easily hand the position over to Shen Shishu, Leon argued. How do you know what the conclusion will be when Shen Shishu's trip up the mountain this time? If we accompany him and the others mistake us for part of Shen Shishu's faction, won't we be dragging Shifu down? Yun Chang hung his head and sighed. I just feel like we weren't very virtuous. Ultimately, Leon couldn't bear to see his shidi so disappointed. Why don't we secretly follow after him? That's good too! Meanwhile, Shen Qiao and Bian Yunmei were on their way up the mountain, and when the disciples on sentry duty saw him, they all had the same reactions as Leon and Yun Chang, as if they'd seen a ghost in broad daylight. At first, they were tongue-tied, their expressions panicked, and most of them could only helplessly watch as the pair ascended the mountain, without daring to stop them. However, there was still a small number of people who came to block Shen Qiao's path. One such disciple said bluntly, "You outcast disciple of Xuandu Mountain! How dare you barge your way onto the mountain?" Shen Qiao recognized him. He was one of Elder Liu Yue's registered disciples. Liang, several years have already passed, and you're still here on sentry duty? Oh! 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 He doesn't even have to have another comment after that. Oh, I love it when Shen Qiao is being courteously savage. Oh. Oh. So good. Oh. I'm sorry. He needs some milk, right? God, that was good. Okay. He spoke this sentence gently, as if it were a normal greeting. However, it managed to poke right into Liang's sore spot, and his face immediately flushed red out of either shame or anger. You, Shen Qiao, you disrespectful madman! There's no place for you on Xuandu Mountain anymore. Shen Qiao smiled slightly. You're right. To rush up the mountain like this would appear a bit too rude. No matter what, we should have a guide to lead us there. I think you're quite suitable. Oh, I love it when he's petty. So saying, he reached out and placed his hand on Liu Liang's shoulder. Liu Liang had clearly seen that it wasn't a fast movement with no fancy tricks to it whatsoever, but all the same, he found himself unable to react in time and was seized. A piercing pain came from his shoulder, and he was unable to struggle free at all. His expression immediately transformed into one of terror. Ever since Xuandu Mountain had reopened its gates, the arrival of news was no longer as delayed or obstructed as before. The disciples had caught wind of Shen Qiao's actions outside from time to time, but hearing about something couldn't compare to seeing it in person. Even if they'd heard 100 rumors about how powerful Shen Qiao had become, seeing it with their own eyes was something else. Liu Liang was no fool either. He immediately realized that he was a raft who delivered himself up and quickly conceded. Shen Shishu, please spare me. This disciple is acting under orders to keep watch, to forbid anyone from going up the mountain. It wasn't to disrespect Shen Shishu. Shen Qiao's eyebrows rose a little, and he said, Everyone is forbidden from going up the mountain? But what's happened up on the mountain? Liu Liang shared everything he knew, not daring to hide anything. Yes, the elders are holding a conference on the mountain to discuss the candidates for the sect leader's position. Have all the elders gathered? Only Elder Kong is in seclusion, so he is absent. The Elder Kong he spoke of was Leon and Yun Chang's master. With their master this fearful, it was no wonder his disciples were the same. Bian Mei was watching dispassionately from the sidelines, but these scornful thoughts filled his heart. Meanwhile, Shen Qiao was thinking that the negative consequences resulting from Xuandu Mountain's multiple generations of isolation were finally emerging one by one. With the sect's gates closed for so long, people's hearts had closed as well. If there were ambitious people like UI, there would naturally also be those like Elder Kong who'd grown timid with the closure, believing it was best to avoid trouble. And to play that the wise should play it safe. Perfect timing, said Shen Qiao. I should go up and listen myself. Liang hurriedly said, I'll guide Shishu there. In fact, even if he didn't guide Shen Qiao, he had to. It was such a slender hand, fair as snow, yet it gripped his shoulder like a pair of iron pliers. Liu Liang was in terrible pain, but he didn't dare to show a hint of it. He quickened his pace and even judiciously explained the situation on the mountain to Shen Qiao. Seeing Liu Liang so wretched, the other disciples dared not come forward and block him. They all moved to either side of the road, letting Shen Qiao's party of 3 continue upward. Oh yeah, Yan Wuxi would be proud. He definitely would be. It wasn't only because they'd been intimidated by Shen Qiao's martial prowess. Back then, when Shen Qiao had still been sect leader, he'd treated all the disciples incredibly well and been fair in meting out rewards and punishments in public, all while never putting on any airs in private. Many disciples admired and respected him deeply. But after the battle at Bamboo Peak, UI had joined with the sect elders and forcibly taken over the position of leader, which caught everyone off guard. Though many disciples were too afraid to offend their seniors, it didn't stop them from having their own thoughts on the matter. Now, upon seeing Shen Qiao's return, quite a few of their gazes even showed expressions of joy. All good. Liu Liang took in those gazes and made his own judgment. He whispered to Shen Qiao, Shen Shishu, this disciple knows that you came back to seek justice. My Shifu has always been loyal to Xuandu Mountain. It was only because he was dissatisfied with Elder Tan's insistence on being acting sect leader. Despite his mediocre abilities, that he opposed him so fiercely. If this disciple may be so bold, he asks your esteemed self to be gracious and show his Shifu magnanimity. Don't be too hard on him, please. Though this person was impudent and rash, he still had a bit of conscience. Shen Qiao smiled slightly. What if I wish to be hard on him? Liu Liang was at a loss for words. He'd been at Xuandu Mountain for so many years, yet remained a registered disciple. This was not only due to his aptitude being mediocre, it was also because his Shifu Liu Yue was someone who judged people based on their looks, rejecting all potential disciples who were too unattractive. Harsh. As Liu Liang was only average in appearance, he naturally had no luck here. But because he was already a registered disciple under Liu Yue, he couldn't apprentice under any of the other elders. His level of dejection over this needed no elaboration. He thought to himself that since he'd said those words, he could claim that he'd already done his best. After all, he couldn't control what Shen Shishu chose to do. With Liu Liang leading the way, Shen Qiao and Bian Mei met no further obstructions. Some disciples had only joined the sect after the battle at Bamboo Peak, so they didn't recognize Shen Qiao. When they saw Liu Liang, they even greeted him and asked, Liu Shixian, didn't we have orders from above that unrelated persons are forbidden from going up the mountain? Considering this, Liu Liang was still quite useful. As they watched Liu Liang's group leave, the disciple who'd just blocked their way turned to his companion in confusion. I don't think we have a Shishu with the surname Shen. His companion racked his brains, then realization struck him. Surname Shen? Could it be? Shen Qiao? An understanding dawned on them both, and they instantly looked at each other in shock. But by now, Shen Qiao's group was already far away. There was no time to stop them. They were going to try to stop him? Oh, good luck. Shen Qiao and Liu Liang walked until they neared the entrance of Ching Hall. As they approached, they heard a shout from inside. Tan Yuan Chun! Before you temporarily took on the position of acting sect leader after sect leader Yu, we needed someone to take care of the sect's mundane affairs. That's why we had no objections. But the acting sect leader is different from an actual sect leader. You aren't the strongest martial artist in the sect, nor do you have any sort of reputation within the Jianghu. So why should you take the sect leader's position? Luo Liang looked embarrassed, for that voice belonged to his shifu, Liu Yue. As today's discussion was an incredibly important one, everyone present was an elder of Xuandu Mountain. Hence, they didn't assign any disciples to keep watch outside the doors. The three of them approached, but no one noticed for now. In contrast to Liu Yue, the person who answered him used a much calmer tone, mild and steady. It didn't seem like he'd been angered. Elder Liu, if you have something to say, please say it properly. Aren't we all currently having a discussion? It's true that I'm untalented, and my aptitude is also the shallowest among the elders. But I understand that everyone recommended me not because I was the strongest, but because I've already been managing our general affairs year in and year out, so I'm more familiar with them. Ultimately, it doesn't matter who the leader is. What's important is that they can contribute to Xuandu Mountain. Don't you agree? Liu Yue sneered. So according to you, it doesn't matter whether the sect leader's strong, so long as they're familiar with handling the sect's general affairs. Then what about my registered disciple Liu Liang, who deals with mundane affairs every day? Wouldn't he be even more suitable for the position? When he said this, not only did Liu Liang long to hide himself in shame, Shen Qiao also frowned slightly. Tan Shidi, one ought to have some self-awareness as a person, Liu Yue went on. Why did perfected Master Qi forego making you, his eldest disciple, the sect leader, when by all rights you should have been? Why did he favor sect leader Shen instead? Wasn't it precisely due to your mediocre aptitude? If you're the only choice, I'd rather invite Shen Shidi back. I heard that Shen Shidi has made great martial advancements, that he's no longer how he was in the past. He's also served as sect leader before, so no matter the situation, he'd still be more suitable than you, right? Hearing this, Shen Qiao no longer remained silent and walked in. I'm deeply grateful for Elder Liu's favor. No one had expected Shen Qiao to silently appear outside, then silently walk inside as well. An eerie silence descended within the main hall. After a moment, Tian Yuan-chun stood up and welcomed him, an expression of surprised joy on his face. Herr Shidi, when did you return? Oh yeah, no, it's... Forget a cat fight, that's more like a cockfight. Just feathers flying everywhere. They're all balking it back and forth. Hooey. Or if it is a cat fight, you just see the fur flying. Ay, ay, ay. Shen Qiao said, I ascended the mountain just now and heard that everyone was discussing the sect leader's position, so I came over. I trust that I didn't interrupt anything. Embarrassment washed over everyone's face. After Shen Qiao had fallen from the cliff, Yu Ai stole the position of sect leader. If one thought about it, he had no right to do so. However, he joined forces with the sect elders and forcibly taken over, and everyone found themselves unable to object. Of course, everyone had their own thoughts on the matter, but in truth, Shen Qiao was still a member of Xuandu's Violet Palace. With Ui now missing and Shen Qiao's return, no one else was qualified to contend with him for the sect leader's seat. Not to mention, Chief Ingwei Shanhitong Bei was still on his back. Liu Yue stole in before the others and reacted first. Since Shen Shidi has returned, all is well. Now that Ui has vanished, Xuandu Mountain is without a leader, and we are hoping for someone to take the reins. Now that you're back, we've finally found our pillar. Tan Yuanshun also smiled. That's right, Ah Qiao. Everything is well now that you've returned. Would you like to rest a bit before speaking? Shen Qiao met his concerned gaze and politely declined. Thank you very much, Da Shixian. We've already rested at the foot of the mountain. I heard that something happened to Ui. Yes, Yu Shidi suddenly disappeared a few days ago. He was fine the previous night, but come the next day, he suddenly vanished without a trace. We searched the entirety of Xuandu Mountain, but he was nowhere to be found. He paused then, and his gaze slid to Bian Mei behind Shen Qiao. Who is this? Shen Qiao did not conceal any intention. This is the disciple of Huanyue Sect leader Yan, Bian Mei Dao Yu. As soon as this remark was made, all present looked at Bian Mei, who did not show any embarrassment or awkwardness, but instead allowed others to assess him in a grand manner. Tian Yuanshun was first surprised, then deeply distressed. That day on the mountain, sect leader Yan took you away. Da Shixian was unable to stop him in time because he was too useless. But I didn't expect that you'd still be consorting with demonic practitioners. Shen Qiao remained calm. Shixian speaks too seriously. Shen Qiao can't bear the burden of the word consorting. Shixian saw with his own eyes that day. I was almost captured by Ui, but sect leader Yan fortunately saved me. And yet you didn't come looking for me afterward? Tan Yuanshun sighed slightly. Ah, Qiao, don't be angry with your Da Shixian. At the time, Xuandu Mountain was under Ui's control. Where would I get the ability to mobilize disciples to look for you? Shen Qiao said calmly, if even Yuan Ying and Hengbo could throw everything away in order to leave the mountain and look for me, I suppose I thought too highly of Da Shixian. Ah Qiao, I understand that you still have anger within you. Da Shixian, Shen Qiao interrupted him. Everyone knows you've always been a good person who's kind to anyone. That's why each and every one of us martial siblings love you very much. But being a good person doesn't mean you should have no uncrossable lines when it comes to your principles. You were deceived by Ui and were forced against your will. I don't blame you for this. But that day, I said that Ui had poisoned me right in front of you. Even if you didn't believe me, shouldn't you have investigated it afterward? Yet, the ones who didn't hear about it with their own ears, Yuan Ying and Heng Bo, believed me. The two of us have just reunited after a long separation, but instead of inquiring about this matter, you used Huanyue Sect to challenge my character and conduct. That really disappoints me. Tan Yuanshun's expression finally shifted. What do you mean by this? At this moment, the disciples on sentry duty barged in well panicked, blood staining their clothes. Elders, this is bad! Huanyue Sect have stormed into the mountain, and there are also Gok Turks! Imagine we ended right there. Befitting, right? We are not. But it is tempting. Oh, my throat feels extra dry tonight. I don't know if it's the coming cold or what's going on. Yes, it would be a Mars rover. Don't worry. I'll read the next chapter. What are we gonna do when we start a new series by a different author and we don't constantly end on cliffhangers? Winter is so fun. At least I get to snuggle with my puppy tomorrow for a bit longer because I get to work from home. Oh, by the way, it's my puppy's birthday today, so he got a nice big bone. I actually have a humidifier over next to me because of the dust in the basement, but I think I might need to clean it because I don't think it's working as well as it was supposed to. Yes, he's very happy when he gets to have extra snuggles. He's a good boy. Got a little sassy when I gave him his treat because I then petted him. He was like, "Rah, rah, rah, rah." Right? Best birthday present. He is now 8. He is getting rounder by the day. He gets too many people scraps, and since it's been so cold, he hasn't been getting his walks. Yeah, he's a good boy. So he's getting fat. You can tell. Thank you. He's a sweet baby. Here, I'll show a picture. He's a good boy. I'm happy to show picture. Where's my baby? My baby boy. Where's my Wrigley boy? Where are you? I know I have pictures, but like, try to get one where it actually shows like his face instead of him just like laying on my legs. Because like he's just a black blob in most of my pictures. Because I'm like, oh, he's so cute. He snuggled up to me, and it's just like a head. This is what he was dreaming. I thought it was really funny because he was like making weird faces. He's dreaming. He was dreaming, so he was making a weird face. He like never dreams like this. Usually he sleeps like a dignified puppy. Let me find. Yeah. He must have been chasing something in his dream. Let me find you a good one. I have less chaotic pictures of my dog. Let me find my baby. Yeah, he's so majestic. He greets me every day. He comes scampering out of my room where I know he shamelessly sleeps on my bed. Oh, here's a good one. Here's my baby. His name's Wrigley. He's a pretty boy. Very soulful eyes. Yep. My sister actually named him. But it's fitting. He is a very handsome boy. He's very soft, but he's also very stinky right now. He needs a bath, but it's just too cold. So he's just going to be stinky for a bit. But anyway, 219:15. Yes. He is very cute. I love his bat ears. All right. 119. Enemies meet. Everyone's expressions fell at the news, and Elder Lian Shan said, "A while ago, the Gok Turks came up the mountain saying that they hoped Xuandu Mountain would form an alliance with the with the Turks. But then sect leader, he'd thoughtlessly been about to say sect leader Yun, but then he glanced at Shen Qiao and changed his words. But then Yun Shidi rejected them. I trust that they're unhappy with this. So this time they allied with Huanyue Sect and came up the mountain looking for trouble. They're hoping to take advantage of our leaderless situation. The Gok Turks were unable to take control of the Central Plains, said Shen Qiao. Since they're separated from Xuandu Mountain by the Shao Kingdom, if they can't manage to control Xuandu Mountain directly, their only option is to cooperate with Huanyue Sect. Liu Yue didn't wait for Tan Yuanchun to speak, but took the opportunity to say, so in Shen Shidi's opinion, how should we respond? We wait and see what they do, then respond accordingly. His answer was rather cursory, but the others couldn't maintain the same matter-of-fact placidity. They've already fought their way up the mountain. It's obvious they haven't come in good faith. If we cower here, our disciples outside will suffer for it. At this time, we should take responsibility and face the enemy head-on. Naturally, no one objected to Shen Qiao's words. They were arguing because it was Xuandu Mountain's own internal affairs, but now that there were outside enemies invading them, they needed to unite against these foreign forces. So I'm not sure if I actually read that correctly because I thought someone else was talking. But I think that was actually Shen Qiao that was saying it, so that was said a little too whirr. Whoops! Shen Qiao had no intention of squabbling over such details, so he allowed the order. He followed the others and walked out. At this moment, the party in question had just finished coming up the mountain, fierce and majestic. They came face to face with Tan Yuanchun's group, who'd come to receive them outside San Qing Hall. Xiao Si was in the front, and he laughed brightly. We've troubled all of Xuandu Mountain's elders in welcoming us. You're much too courteous. Liu Yue sneered. You hurt our disciples and barged your way up the mountain. How dare you speak so shamelessly? With a fiery passion, he instantly drew his sword, prepared to go up and fight. Xiao Si took a half step back and used his fan to shield himself. You're only a mediocre martial artist. You're no match for my Shizun. Why are you in such a hurry to humiliate yourself? I heard that Xuandu Mountain sect leader Yun has disappeared for some reason, so now your honored sect has no leader. Looks like it's true, otherwise why would everything be such a mess? Tan Yuanchun frowned. You need not trouble yourselves over other sects' internal affairs. Xuandu Mountain has declined all guests today, yet you still come uninvited. Such uncouth manners. Oh, they don't care, honey. They really don't care. This distinguished master looks a little unfamiliar, said Xiao Si, smiling. Which elder are you? Tan Yuanchun. Xiao Si raised his eyebrow. I heard that Qi Fengwei had an eldest disciple, and though he apprenticed early, there was nothing outstanding about him. So when Qi Fengwei was on his deathbed and chose the disciple to inherit his mantle, he skipped right over his eldest disciple and picked his second disciple, Shen Qiao, instead. Is that true? He'd clearly seen that Shen Qiao was present, but he deliberately said those things to provoke. But Shen Qiao's attention was not on Xiao Si. He was looking at San Jinxing and Duan Wenyang. It's about to go down! Many people had come up Xuandu Mountain. However, compared to the contingent who'd come to the sword trial conference, this current Hihuan group was smaller. Shen Qiao noticed that Yuan Shushu was not among them, and the faces of several disciples of Huanyue Sect had also disappeared. Shen Qiao may not have known their names, but he had some impression of them still. When Shen Qiao swept his gaze over Bai Rong, she even winked at him and smiled. He looked away uneasily. Bian Mei leaned in and whispered, Everyone in Huanyue Sect, man or woman, is utterly ruthless, capable of consuming even the bones of those they destroy. They love men with abundant abundant primordial yang like Taoist Master Shen the most. You must control yourself with them. Right, gee, I wonder why they're not here. Probably because they're dead. I agree, Truffle. I wonder. Shen Qiao was caught between laughing and crying. I find Bai Rong to be all right. Not to mention that he had no intentions in the slightest. Bian Mei didn't know what was going on inside his mind. He really was afraid that Shen Qiao might fall into her trap. She might look all pure and innocent to Taoist Master Shen, Bian Mei tried to remind him, but in truth, who knows how many young men she's pair-cultivated with. I heard that even Sun Jingxing was once an intimate confidant of hers. Poor lady. In truth, Shen Qiao had already known about this matter. Hearing it again, he couldn't help but sigh. In this world, everyone would love to live and act without scruples, but there are always certain things that will stop them from doing so. Sorry, I'm just getting cold again. My heating pad turned off. In this world, everyone would love to live and act without scruples, but there are always certain things that will stop them from doing so. No matter how vicious a person is, as long as they possess a little goodness, I don't want to deny that goodness because of their evil. Like master, like disciple, they miss no chance to badmouth Bai Rong. They say, "Do not fall for her womanly wiles." He always remembered how Bai Rong had immediately shown him mercy and given him reminders when he'd been in desperate situations. Though she wouldn't go out of her way to help him out of his crises, neither did she pursue and attack him when he was in trouble, even when carrying out important duties for her sect. For this, Shen Qiao felt that he should remember this small share of kindness. Bian Mei had long known that Shen Qiao was a kind person, but he didn't expect that he'd also have such a special view of Bai Rong. He said under his breath, "How soft-hearted you are. No wonder Shizen has you wrapped around his little finger." They spoke in low voices for a few moments. Meanwhile, Xuandu Mountain and Huanyue Sect were about to turn their weapons on each other in the next disagreement. But it wasn't just Huanyue Sect's party in attendance. Duan Wenyang and a couple of unfamiliar Gok Turks were there as well. And Xuandu Mountain was missing a leader, leaving their minds scattered. They were filled with apprehension, thinking that their chances of victory weren't high, so they didn't dare strike first. The other party had clearly noticed this as well. Duan Wenyang smiled. "We heard that your sect is going to choose a leader today, so we came up to watch the fun. However, since the hearts of your honored sect are divided, I fear it'd be hard for you to reach a consensus. Why don't we help you decide?" Tian Yuanshun resolutely declined. "We won't trouble outsiders to make decisions about the affairs within Xuandu Mountain. Please leave quickly, otherwise you can't blame us for being impolite." As soon as he said this, Liu Yue rebuked him. "Who knows how many of our disciples they injured on their way here? How can we let them go so easily?" Oh, so much for don't. Oh boy. Yuan Wengyang gave a laugh. "You're unwilling to let us go so easily, but what can you do about it?" "Naturally, you can leave after leaving your lives behind." This sentence wasn't spoken by anyone present at the scene. Not doing great with who's who. The voice was dull and hoarse, and the sentence wasn't spoken by anyone present at the scene. Though the speaker had used all his strength, his volume wasn't loud either. If the people present hadn't been martial artists, they probably wouldn't have heard it at all. The crowd followed the sound and couldn't help their shock. A person hobbled out from behind San Qing Hall, his steps heavy as if they were suffering from internal injuries, and his legs were wounded as well. He limped as he walked. His clothes were spotted with bloodstains, and numerous gashes covered his face. He was in wretched state. But no one on Xuandu Mountain would fail to recognize him. Ui? The new arrival was indeed Ui. He clutched a bamboo staff. Using it as a crutch, he walked towards the crowd, step by step. Are we seeing a foil? I think so. Duan Wenyang's face also showed surprise. I heard that sect leader Yu had mysteriously disappeared a few days ago. It seems that the rumors were false. Ui looked at him coldly. I'm sure you're devastated that I'm not dead, aren't you? Duan Wenyang chuckled and said, What does this have to do with me? I heard that the moment you died, your Xuandu Mountain started squabbling over the position of sect leader. Sect leader, you should suspect your martial siblings first. Tan Yuanchun's voice was full of concern. You, Shidi, you're still injured. Hurry, go bandage yourself and rest for a bit first. Ui sent him a glance. I was wrong, he said. Everyone was stunned by his seemingly random words. Wrong about what? Said Tan Yuanchun. I was determined to build a lasting foundation for Xuandu Mountain, Ui said coolly. I thought that the last few generations of our forefathers were too stubborn, willing to open their eyes to look at the world outside. Therefore, I took great pains in plotting against Shen Qiao and working together with the Gok Turks. I thought that Xuandu Mountain would be able to reestablish its position as the world's foremost sect under my leadership. But I didn't expect that I'd be wrong from the very beginning. Working with the Gok Turks is like asking a tiger for its skin. I refused to be their puppet and present them Xuandu Mountain on a platter, so they reacted with treachery, wanting to drive me out of the sect leader's position so they could support another person becoming their puppet instead. And they could use this to seize the foundation of Xuandu Mountain's centuries old legacy. Tan Yuanchun was stunned. You're saying that your disappearance was related to the Gok Turks? I'd entered seclusion that night when someone mimicked Shen Qiao's handwriting and sent me a carrier pigeon, Ui said coldly. They said that they were waiting for me in the backyard. But when I got there, I was ambushed by 3 mysterious people. They all covered their faces, wore black clothes, were excellent martial artists. I was no match for them and was severely injured. And then I fell tens of thousands of yards from the cliff. Fortunately, a tree branch broke my fall, and I was able to survive and return to the world today. It seems that heaven took pity on me, allowing me to return to testify against the culprits. Wow, it's almost like Shen Qiao was right all along. What? Yeah, no, it's really like everything's come full circle, and he's almost call it karma. Like he's going through kind of a situation just like Shen Qiao, where he got betrayed and dropped off a cliff, and now is coming back with a bamboo pole. Looks pretty close. Liu Yue frowned. So you're saying that someone impersonated Shen Shidi and sent you a letter? Shocked, Tan Yuanchun pressed his questions. Who were those 3 mysterious people? Ui shook his head. I don't know. They never showed their faces even once, but I know that Heir Shixian was definitely not among them. Shen Qiao said coolly, Someone mimicked my handwriting and sent you a letter, and you immediately believed it. That alone is proof of your guilty conscience. Karma is a cat purring in my lap because it loves me. Heir Shixian is correct. Ui said with a wry smile. Even to this day, everything I've done has been fruitless, yet I hurt you. Caused you to... He grew so agitated he had to stop speaking. A moment passed before he managed to forcibly regain his composure. I caused you to suffer so much misery, sorry. It's all my fault. If apologies could change anything, would people no longer need to take responsibility for their crimes? Shen Qiao was not moved by the phrase, I'm sorry. Your distinguished self speaks too seriously. Was he unwilling to say even a single shidi? Yuai's face darkened and he smiled bitterly. This is also my retribution. You, shidi, a dire enemy currently stands before us. Can we leave your matters aside for a bit? No, because the reason I was schemed against is related to the Gok Turks. Yuai took a deep breath and turned to Duan Wenyang. A few days ago, I just rejected your proposal, refused to be a puppet for the Gok Turks. Then I encountered an assassination attempt. But even a fool would believe that you had nothing to do with it. Duan Wenyang smiled. Sect leader Yuai, you must not accuse people unjustly. I'm not from your Xuandu mountain. How would I be able to sneak in here without anyone the wiser? At the very least, wouldn't I have to injure a couple of disciples? Shen Qiao suddenly answered. If there's a spy within Xuandu Mountain coordinating with you, you'd naturally be able to deceive everyone. Upon hearing this, Liu Yue, Tan Yuanchun, and the others couldn't help but be stunned. What does Shen Shidi mean by this? Yuan Ying told me that the Gok Turks were unable to coerce nor bribe Ui, Shen Qiao said calmly. So they turned to inciting others. The Gok Turks told Yuan Ying that if he obeyed them without question, they would help him become the sect leader. Since he didn't agree, of course they'd look for someone else. There will always be someone who cannot resist the temptation. Ui coughed a few times and covered his chest, saying, That's right. First I was ambushed, and now while the position of sect leader is vacant, you all come up the mountain. How could you have known unless someone tipped you off? Proves that today's events were premeditated. Duan Wenyang and company chose to head up the mountain at this time was naturally not just for the sake of verbally taunting Xuandu Mountain. Yuai's appearance was unexpected, but his survival couldn't affect much. On the contrary, it was Shen Qiao's presence that was more troublesome. Duan Wenyang made up his mind and exchanged a glance with San Jinxing. He left. Since sect leader Yun has said so, if I don't play the villain, I'd be betraying your trust. With a slight wave of his hand, several of the Gok Turks behind him all followed his order. They each brandished their sabers and leapt towards Liu Yue, Tan Yuanchun, and the others, dragging them into battle. The martial prowess of the elders varied, but even those with unexceptional aptitude like Tan Yuanchun were only so when compared with Chief Ingwe's other disciples. They weren't so mediocre that anyone could walk all over them. However, the Gok Turks who'd followed Duan Wenyang up the mountain were naturally not pushovers either. Both sides immediately became embroiled in a back-and-forth scuffle. Blades danced and flashed, making for a hectic scene. Duan Wenyang watched the battle with his arms behind his back. He didn't participate and instead smiled brightly. These people were all personally trained by my master, can be considered the Gok Turks' most powerful warriors, he said. They have long heard of the formidable skills of Xuandu Mountain's Taoist masters. Today, they have the chance to seek martial guidance. I ask that the Taoist masters not hold back. Liu Yue and the others were busy dealing with these people. How could anyone spare the attention to answer him? Luo Liang saw Duan Wenyang's gaze sweep over him, and his heart chilled. He was terrified that the other party would turn his attention to an insignificant little disciple like him, and he couldn't help but hide behind Shen Qiao. Hey, duckling alert, duckling alert. Liu Yue swung his sword and pushed the Gok Turk man engaged with him back a few steps, then exclaimed loudly, Shen Shidi, Many on Xuandu Mountain have greatly wronged you in the past, but when I declared you an outcast disciple that day, I also spoke up for you. Please, for perfected Master Chi's sake, help us defend Xuandu Mountain. Don't give any advantages to these scumbags. Duan Wenyang sputtered a laugh. I truly feel aggrieved on your behalf, Taoist Master Shen. While you were downtrodden, they didn't lend you a hand. Today, they're met with trouble, and they want you to repay their enmity with kindness. If you don't nurse any grievances, I will nurse them for you. I say, you shouldn't bother with this matter. Once they all die, the position of sect leader will naturally become yours again. How about it? No, Shen Qiao said calmly. Ui proclaimed himself the leader, but I didn't agree. He expelled me from Xuandu Mountain, but I am still Qi Fenggui's disciple. Pardon me. He drew Shanhe Tongpei from his back. Beneath the dazzling light, its blades sparkled with a rippling luster, and there came the faint sounds of howling wind and rumbling thunder. With me around, no one is allowed to have designs on Xuandu Mountain. His tone was even, without any kind of earth-shaking power or intimidation, yet no one could dare to take his words lightly. Shen Shidi, allow me to give you a hand. Accompanying that shout, 3 figures swept over from another direction, 1 in front and 2 behind. The first was Elder Kong Shang, and he was followed by his 2 disciples, the martial siblings Lian and Yun Chang, whom Shen Qiao had encountered at the foot of the mountain. Those 2 had followed Shen Qiao from afar. At first, they'd only wanted to watch, but they didn't expect to encounter members of the Gokturks and Huanyue Sect ascending the mountain to look for trouble. They didn't dare to intervene in internal conflicts, but an invasion from foreign enemies was another matter. The 2 immediately went to find their master, Kong Zhang. Oh, they misspelled! We got another one! Kong Zhang, Elder Kong, then rushed back and followed Elder Kong's lead. Unless this is another person, but they're missing an H if not. Well, maybe not. Maybe the... Oh, well, whatever. Kong Zhang came to Shen Qiao and cupped his hands. Kong Zhang is late. He asked for sect leader Shen to punish him. Shen Qiao nodded and said, Elder Kong was halfway through his seclusion and at a crucial moment. It's already fortunate that you were able to come. What punishment is there to give? It was unclear if he'd noticed the address of sect leader, but Shen Qiao hadn't denied it. Kong Zhang's face flushed red, as his seclusion was just a pretext. In truth, he'd simply been unwilling to participate in selecting their next sect leader. He didn't know if Shen Qiao had already seen through this, so he could only clumsily gloss it over. When faced with such a dire enemy, how could we afford to care only about ourselves? I'm enough to handle some petty riffraff. The sect leader need not trouble himself with them. Duan Wenyang stood with his hands behind his back. He obviously wasn't taking Kong Zhang seriously. I'm afraid you're no match for me. Kong Zhang sneered and said, What use is your small talk? We'll only know after we try. So saying, he raised his sword and slashed at Duan Wenyang. With this opening strike, Huanyue Sect and the others naturally couldn't just watch from the sidelines. With the sole exception of San Jinxing, everyone jumped in, and fighting broke out all around at once. Lian and Yun Chang naturally joined the fight to help their Shifu, but unfortunately, they were young and their martial arts unpolished. It was difficult for them to contend with Xiaoxi and Bai Rong, and they quickly found themselves at a disadvantage, being countered at every turn. As Yun Chang's sword technique revealed openings, Xiaoxi crooked his fingers and reached through the wind from Yun Chang's sword, grabbing at his neck. The movement was as swift as lightning, leaving Yun Chang no time to react before his throat was seized. If Cao Shi squeezed just a little tighter, he would die on the spot. This had happened in an instant. Even Yun Chang couldn't put up any resistance, let alone Lian next to him. Just as Yun Chang thought his death was imminent, he heard someone chuckle next to him. So she, you're also a person of repute. Why are you picking on the weak? At those words, Yun Chang suddenly felt the grip around his neck loosen, followed by the lingering terror that came with escaping certain death. Bian Mei's palm strike meant for Xiao Si had to toss aside. Oh, Bian Mei's palm strike meant that Xiao Si had to toss aside Yun Chang to fight him. His fan blocked the palm blast, then he poured his internal energy into it and swept back at him. Their robes and sleeves tossed and flapped, and in an instant they'd exchanged dozens of blows. And I thought that Yan Wushi's eldest disciple would be someone incredible. Oh, shoot. I am not doing well with voices tonight. That was Bian Mei. Not by wrong. I saw the B. Oops. And I thought Yan Wushi's eldest disciple would be someone incredible. Turns out you're nothing special. Cao Shi sneered. Seems to me you're not that much stronger than Yu Shengyan. In front of Sen Qing Hall, the fighters clashed in close quarters, their murderous intent overflowing. In an instant, everything had fallen into chaos. Yet Shen Qiao didn't move, because another person had yet to move as well. San Jingsing. Previously, at the Sword Trial Conference, first Yuan Shushu had intervened, then Hulagu had appeared, so Shen Qiao ultimately failed to fight San Jingsing. But San Jingsing had also seen the changes within Shen Qiao as a result. He was no longer the same. This was no longer the blind man who could only resign himself to the mercy of others. He was far more handsome than ever before, yet unfortunately he turned into a thorny flower, something that couldn't be devoured so easily. The regret that he... Okay, I'm going to say it right now. Potential yuck coming up because it's San Jingsing. So, forewarned, if this is in his point of view or thoughts, it's probably going to be gross. The regret that he hadn't been able to obtain Shen Qiao that day lingered unceasingly in San Jingsing's heart. Furthermore, he'd suffered severe injuries at Shen Qiao's hands and new grudges combined with old hatred. He'd never let Shen Qiao off so easily. He also knew that, since he'd tormented Shen Qiao into destroying his martial arts, Shen Qiao would not let the matter rest either. Shen Qiao, he suddenly said with a smile, when I see you, I feel that it's such a pity. Shen Qiao looked at him silently. He didn't ask San Jingsing what he meant. The pity lies in how I wasn't the one who picked you up beneath Bamboo Peak, said San Jingsing. If I had, would Yan Wuxi be at the top? This kind of beauty, this kind of talent, he was meant for Huanyue Sect from birth. He should have spent his days behind the bed curtains as a vessel for cultivating others' martial arts. Shen Qiao was neither surprised nor angry, but asked an irreverent question. Where is sect leader Yun? After our previous farewell, I miss her deeply. San Jingsing smiled slightly. I forgot to tell you that the leader of Huanyue Sect has changed. If you are willing to visit Huanyue Sect, I may take you to see where a corpse is submerged. Shen Qiao raised an eyebrow. You killed her? Surprised? Shen Qiao slowly shook his head. I've long heard about the discord between the two of you, he said. But sect leader Yuan didn't seem like someone who'd just wait to be killed. She did indeed have a couple of petty tricks up her sleeve. If not for that, I wouldn't have waited so long to kill her. What a pity. Did you like her? Though sect leader Yuan was a woman, she still conducted herself as befitting a sect leader. If you were to become the leader instead, I fear that after today, Huanyue Sect will need to find someone else to swear allegiance to. Yeah, Yan Wuxi making things weird, Sun Jingsing making things weird and creepy. Sun Jingsing laughed as he was seized with anger. What do you mean? I'm going to kill you. That's what I mean. At those words, Shen Qiao sprang into action. His wrist moved ever so slightly, and his fingers transformed into a phantasm. Swathed within the sword's glare, innumerable rays. Swathed within the sword's glares, innumerable rays, his silhouette faded until it almost vanished. The body moves with the will, the sword moves with the heart. The mountains and rivers grieve as one, and the world fades into gray. And that is where we're going to end it for this week. What a poetic way to end it. And once again, a cliffhanger. Were you surprised? I wasn't. At least we didn't get super creep levels enough with Sun Jingsing where I had to actually put in a warning again. Other than the initial warning at the beginning for his everything. His everything. She really does love her cliffs. Is it a she or he? Meng, she or he? Not that it matters, but I just wanted to use the right pronouns. Oh, her cliffs. Okay, her. Okay. It'd be more surprising if there wasn't a cliffhanger. At this point, yes. All right. But this was really good. A lot happened this chapter. Usually it takes a longer time for things to happen, but we had actually got to the mountain, got up the mountain, had a discussion. Now we're fighting. So that's a lot to happen in a chapter, because usually it's they would just get to the mountain and then we'd stop. So good progress today. I think it's I think we're almost done with the main part. Yes, we are. So next week we will be just on the cusp of finishing the main storyline. And then the week after that, it will be the final part and then a little bit of the start of the epilogue. So, but yeah. And then we've got a lot of stories, because that's only half the book. Half the book is finishing it, and the other half is extras. So that'll be a lot of fun reading. But yes, have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe, stay warm. It's going to be brutal out there for a lot of people, myself included. So be aware, bundle up, and good night to everyone watching later. I hope you enjoyed. I know I did. And I will see you next week. Bye-bye. I just have to find the button. Bye-bye.